A chilly evening here at Citizens Bank Park in Philadelphia. This week's host for ESPN's Sunday Night Baseball, presented by Taco Bell. The Phillies hosting the Cardinals. Tonight we'll focus on the impact of one of baseball's best at perhaps the sport's most important position, Cardinal All-Star Yadier Molina. Also, a look at the roster of the Phillies. Is the All-Star pedigree enough to take them back to the top of the division that they ruled for 5 straight seasons until a third-place finish last year? Or will the NL East winner come from points south? Either the first-place Braves or the defending division champion Nationals. We'll look at what drives the top 2 teams in the National League East. The Phillies trying to salvage a split with the Cardinals. The first pitch of the night is coming up on ESPN's Sunday Night Baseball. Sunday Night Baseball is presented by Taco Bell. Sometimes you gotta live Mas. And in part by the Volkswagen Passat. That's the power of German engineering. Welcome back to Philadelphia. Kyle Kendrick and the Phillies trying to salvage a split of a 4-game series here at Citizens Bank Park against the leaders in the National League Central, the St. Louis Cardinals. Hi, everybody. Dan Shulman along with former Phillies great John Kruk. Oral Hershiser, as always. Welcome to Philadelphia. and welcome to Sunday Night Baseball. The problem for the Phillies right now is they have not been scoring runs. We're used to this team scoring a lot of runs, but year by year the numbers are going down. Charlie Manuel told us before the game, Bulldog, Ryan Howard's got to start swinging the bat.
Yeah, Charlie Manuel posed a question, can the Phillies contend in the National League without Ryan Howard having production? He said probably not. Very, very difficult. The big piece has more home runs and more RBIs than anybody in baseball in the last 8 years. He's off to a very slow start right now, trying to take the ball to left field. But I think if you ask Charlie Manuel, he wants him to jerk the ball over the right field wall here and get some production.
If you ask Mike Matheny, he's pretty happy about their offense. Let's take a look at the Cardinals starting lineup tonight, presented by Taco Bell. And every time we talk about the Cardinals lineup, Crucky, you say, boy, this looks like an American League lineup.
Yeah, and with Matt Holliday not even in the lineup, but Carlos Beltran is swinging a hot bat. 3 straight games with home runs. 30 home runs against the Phillies, the most for any active player in the game of baseball. One of the best switch hitters in the game. But the guy who this team runs around right now is Yadier Molina. He took over the leadership role when Albert Pujols left via free agency, and Yadier Molina right now, to me, is the best catcher in baseball. No disrespect to Buster Posey. He handles a pitching staff. Now he's added offense to his arsenal. That's why he's a platinum glove winner, which means he's the best at his position, Dan.
And we get a look at Kyle Kendrick on the mound. There's all kinds of talk, Oral, about the big three. You hear a lot about Halladay and Lee and Hamels. Kyle Kendrick's off to a good start, and a pretty important part of this rotation.
Yeah, he had the tale of 2 seasons last year. He was the typical sinker-slider pitcher, but it looked like the stats weren't coming. He didn't throw the ball very well, had a heart-to-heart with his pitching coach and other guys in the Phillies organization, and now he is a sinker change-up pitcher where the slider/cutter is his 3rd pitch.
You can see him blowing into his hands. It is a very cold night down in the 40s. The breeze blowing out a little bit toward left center right now. And we are ready for baseball. The 4th and final game of this series, with the Cardinals having won 2 of the first 3. John Jay takes a strike. Greg Gibson, the home plate umpire. And we are underway here at 8:06 Eastern time. On to Jay is right there for a strike. The Cardinals center fielder hitting just .224, coming in 0 for his last 12. Got the night off last night with a left-hander on the mound for the Phillies. And lays off a pitch in the dirt for ball 1.
You think about the Cardinals offense, how potent it has been this season, how great they are with runners in scoring position and with runners in scoring position and 2 outs. And their leadoff hitter, John Jay, yet to get off the schneid here. He's struggling early in the season.
You look at the Cardinals' overall numbers, they're slugging, they're on base. Those numbers are mediocre, but as Crucky says, they're scoring a lot of runs because their hitting with runners in scoring position is off the charts. Ridiculously good numbers right now. Fouled off by Jay. 383 as a team with runners in scoring position, and well over 400 with runners in scoring position and 2 outs. Obviously unsustainable numbers, but the biggest reason why the Cardinals are scoring a fair number of runs early in the season. Ball in, says the home plate umpire Greg Gibson. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Orel tried to run that 2-seamer back over the inside corner.
He has really found success with being able to command the inside part of the plate with that 2-seamer to left-handers. And that'll be a key pitch to watch tonight.
Missed outside, full count.
It's a rarity to have a pitcher on the mound, a right-hander that is a sinker change-up pitcher, and that really are his top 2 pitches. And it really turned his season around last year, the second half of the year. 9 wins after the All-Star break. That was tied for first in the National League.
Down the left field line, Michael Young can't catch up to it.
And I think the big difference in Kyle Kendrick, when he first came up, he had success early as a rookie, and then he struggled because teams adjusted to him and they basically looked away and shot the ball to left field, or righties were pulling him. Oral, you see him now, he's pounding the ball inside against John Jay, and that's something that for a sinker baller, it's got to be a tough to get that ball in on left-handed hitters, but he's been able to do it, and that's why he's had success.
And strike 3 called. Left that ball maybe a little bit more up than he ideally would have wanted to, but he gets the call.
What happens when the left-handed hitters know that you're going to be living away, the outside corner to them visually becomes the middle of the plate. So when you start a ball in the inner half or inside, it really looks inside the J. Even though it ends up down the middle, it shows you that it just changes the hitter's perspective. When you can just get it inside a little bit, you lock them up.
Now second baseman Matt Carpenter. Carpenter, really more of a natural third baseman, has made a pretty solid transformation to second base for the Cardinals this year. Down to 267 after going hitless in his last 12 at bats. But a guy whose swing the Cardinals really like. He's did well last year with them, has done well in the minors, and Crucky, every year it seems like the Cardinals find 2 or 3 guys, you plug them in and roll them out there and they do well.
Yeah, they lose players and then they bring up young kids. But the thing I like about it is, Dan, is when they bring up young kids, they let them play and they trust them. So many organizations don't trust young players yet. And they go out and there's nerves, and when they start to struggle, they get benched or they get sent down. The Cardinals just throw them out there and say, here's the way we play, here's the way we expect you to play, now go do it.
Chilly night. They say it's 50 degrees here in Philadelphia. It feels less than that at game time. 1-2 to Carpenter. Just missed.
You know, most sinker ball pitchers, you think that as you see the fans all bundled up, would establish a way. But tonight, Kendrick really establishing into these left-handed hitters, getting them conscious of that fastball in.
Out of play.
And if he can command that backdoor slider with coming in off the plate to the lefties, it's going to be a long night for left-handed hitters if he can control them.
What about Ora? You see Kendrick blowing into his hand between every single pitch because it's such a cold night. What about getting the grip on the baseball?
Well, it's a tough thing to do. You might use a little rosin off there in the back. You might be blowing in there a little bit more than air just to get a little moisture on your hand to be able to grip the ball.
Any particular pitch the toughest in these kinds of situations?
I think the changeup can get a little tougher. I think when you're able to use your grip strength with your fastball or maybe a hard breaking ball, but when you have to have that light grip where the ball's got a tendency to possibly slip out of your hand, it could affect the feel of his changeup tonight.
And a black glove's a good one to have tonight.
3-2 is ripped deep right field and gone. Home run number 2 on the season for Matt Carpenter, and an early 1-0 lead for the Cardinals. So Carpenter with the early home run. Cardinals lead, and here comes a guy who's been a one-man wrecking crew. He has homered in each of the last 3 games. Maybe Carpenter drawing some inspiration from the recent success of Carlos Beltran. And when Beltran is in a groove, few make the game look as easy as he does.
Now, when he first came up, a lot of people thought, you know, he's not a high-energy guy. He looks lethargic. He looks lazy. They said the same thing about Mike Schmidt. Mike Schmidt was a Hall of Fame player, but when you're so gifted athletically, as these two are, they do make the game seem and appear easy to the fans.
Last week we did the Yankee-Oriole game, and we talked about Robinson Cano, what a pretty swing. Well, Beltran's right in there in the top when he's on his game.
That's a pitch Kendrick really wanted. Didn't get the call, and it's ball 2.
Oh, I think it's a pitch he has to have, and if he's not going to get that call, now maybe you can start eliminating the inside pitch, the borderline inside pitch as a hitter, and now start looking away and trying to drive it the other way.
Ball's on the outside part of the plate, and Beltran does drive it the other way for a base hit to left center.
Well, Matt Carpenter, Dan, you said it. He does have a pretty swing, and that's the one right there that he struck John Jay out. A little bit more up in the zone to Jay to get the strikeout, but Carpenter didn't give. And when you don't give on that pitch, it's going to come back over the middle half of the plate. And Carpenter was looking for it, and he spun on it. And, you know, this ballpark conducive to home runs, especially Michael Young was saying from line to line, it's a great home run park. And Carpenter put him up on top early.
Here's Alan Craig. Craig is normally the first baseman for the Cardinals, but he can also play the corner outfield spots. He's in left field tonight. Matt Holliday, who doesn't have good numbers against Kendrick, getting a night off. And it allows Mike Matheny to put Matt Adams into the lineup tonight. Adams will be at first base.
Yeah, well, you know, Adams is only hitting .520, so you can understand why.
Squeak him in the lineup.
Yeah, so like sneak him in there. I hope no one notices.
Imagine if he got to play more than a couple times a week. It's a nice problem for Mike Matheny. And he was joking before the game. Every single day somebody's angry at him because every single day he's got to tell somebody who deserves to be in the lineup, you're not in the lineup today.
Yeah, where some teams are looking for able bodies to go out there on a daily basis besides your pitcher. The Cardinals have a plethora and they're trying to mix and match.
1-2 on Craig.
You know, Kendrick looked really sharp the first hitter or so, and then got beat up by Carpenter for that scratch run. And now here we are at pitch 22 in the first inning. He's only got one out and a 1-2 count. Yeah, can he turn it around real quick with a double play ball? But for a guy who looked kind of locked in coming out of the bullpen, he's going through a rocky inning.
He went 3-2 to Jade before he struck him out. He went 3-2 to Carpenter for the home run. They're getting that pitch count up. Does that count as a pitch when you fire one over to first at 85?
Probably might. Not on our clicker. Was that decisive enough for you, Clark? Probably might.
Out of play right side on the 23rd pitch thrown by Kendrick, and he's still only got one out to show for it. And there's more trouble waiting on deck. Not a lot of soft spots in this Cardinal lineup.
How accurate was the clicker when you were dialed in?
I think it got turned back on a few innings. How many pitches did I have? One inning, you got 110. Come back in the next inning. How many pitches I got? 95.
That's the 8th pitch already that a Cardinal batter has fouled off against Kendrick.
And he's really fighting the grip on the ball now. You see him really going to his mouth and blowing on his hand. And one of the things with a sinker ball pitcher, you sometimes can't sink the ball quite as much in the cold weather because you can't hold on to the ball long enough. It starts to slip out of your hands and you don't get on top of your sinker. So right now you're seeing a lot of tail on his pitches, but you're not seeing a lot of sink.
And another foul ball.
The changeup seems to be sinking. That was that pitch at 83 miles an hour. That ball had some nice bite and dive on it. But the hard fastball around 90 to 91, 92 is not sinking much. But you watch this changeup go down. It's really got him out in front and had some bite.
Fouled off another tough pitch.
Yep.
I know Alan Craig is struggling at 220, but he keeps the bat through the zone so long, and that's how he can foul off the changeups and the fastballs, because the bat stays in the hitting zone for a long period of time. He doesn't cut his swing short. If he does, he would have probably swung and missed by now.
And a big 2-run single in last night's game off Cliff Lee. 5-0 win for the Cardinals a night ago. Outside.
You're so right, Crocky, because at a 90-mile-an-hour fastball and then an 83 or 84-mile-an-hour changeup, that's only 6-7 mile-an-hour difference. But if you have that 10-mile-an-hour differential, that's the swing in this changeup. That 6-7 mile-an-hour changeup, that's the one that gets weak contact.
And he got it. Big second out for Kyle Kendrick.
Well, a good location on that last changeup. He took about 7 miles an hour off, but that ball had good bite and really the bottom dropped out of it. It's a little split change right there down. Craig's got to commit because it's right down the middle. You see the split change. This is a pitch that he's learned, and Roy Halladay also throws.
So 2 down, and the batter is Yadier Molina. This is the 18th game of the season for the Cardinals. Molina has started 17 of them. Got a night off on Friday. Went 3 for 4 Thursday. Went 3 for 4 last night.
you remember when Yadier first came up, you know, the defense was always there, and the arm was always there, and his ability to work with his pitchers and eventually be a great game caller. This offense, though, the last few years has just come around to where, you know, he's put himself into talk with Buster Posey as the two best catchers in baseball right now. Not sure there's a close third.
Kind of reminds me of a great shortstop who came out of the minor leagues, you know, like an Omar Vizquel or even an Ozzie Smith, that then, you know, you come with the D and then the bat comes. And Yadier Molina is that kind of defensive player that has turned the offensive switch on.
Finished 4th in MVP balloting a year ago. To your point, guys, back in 2006, Molina hit .216. The last 2 years, he's hit .305 and .315. With the most power he's ever had. 14 homers 2 years ago, 22 home runs last year. Foul territory, Michael Young. With room, and the inning is over. But the Cardinals get on the board on the first inning home run by Matt Carpenter. 1-0 St. Louis, going to the bottom of the first. As they take 3 from the Tigers. Here the Phillies have lost 2 of the first 3 of this series to the Cardinals, and they're down 1-0 as we go to the bottom of the first. Let's take a look at Charlie Manuel's lineup tonight, brought to you by Taco Bell. And this Phillies lineup, guys, is littered with big names, with big resumes, but they're not scoring a lot of runs right now. They've scored only 21 runs in their last 9 games. Now Chase Utley looks healthy. The knees appear to be good. He's running well. He's swinging the bat well. But this is a guy they really need. Ryan Howard out the last couple of days with a slight groin strain, back in there, but off to a very poor power start. Just 1 home run, 62 at bats to begin the season, and facing a guy, Oral, who wants to keep the ball down. He says, there are no surprises. Everybody knows what I'm trying to do. One of the game's most prolific sinker ball pitchers, ground ball pitchers, Jake Westbrook.
Yeah, Jake will be trying to keep the ball down. The thing to watch with him, if he's going for the corners, is a sinker flat, but when he throws it and it catches some plate, it seems to have more depth, and the hitters start the bat, and he gets a ton of ground balls.
Jimmy Rollins leading it off. Rollins hitting .232 on the season, has good numbers though against Westbrook in his career, 6 for 15. right on the corner. Boy, not more than an inch or two difference between those last two pitches, but this one goes Westbrook's way.
Well, you see the depth that Westbrook is getting on his sinker compared to Kyle Kendrick. Kendricks is a little bit more of a tailer tonight, but Westbrook's is going down.
Breaking ball fouled off, still 2-2.
If you're the Philadelphia Phillies, if you're not going to hit for power, Ryan Howard's not going to be that home run threat. Jimmy Rollins has to be a guy that steps up and makes up for that loss, because Howard is hitting over 270. So it's not like he's an automatic out right now. But if Jimmy Rollins can get on base, only hitting 230, steal bases, create runs with his leg. I mean, Charlie was tickled about yesterday. He said he put on a hit and run. I mean, it's a rare thing. Yeah. And, you know, they said, hey, not only did we get this, everyone got the sign right, too, because it's rare that they put on any signals at all.
Charlie loves hitting, and Charlie loves home runs more than anything. Pulled foul by Rollins.
Oh, that's that nasty sinker. You hit off the end of the bat, and that thing shatters.
And I think he just broke Ryan Howard's bat, because he was going to use Ryan Howard's bat tonight, because it's a little bigger, a little longer, and it weighs a little bit more. And Jimmy, talking to him around the cage, he said, I like to go with the longer, heavier bat against a guy who throws basically the same speed all the time. And since he's going to be living away with the sinker, this one he still hits off the end of the bat. That's a 34-inch bat. Normally he uses a 33-inch bat.
He's making Westbrook work.
He's using the last inch. Hey, John, don't you see that approach right there? Wouldn't you want to go with 2 strikes, take that to the opposite way, and not be pulling that ball?
Well, not only with 2 strikes, but if he's going to throw sinkers away, you better do it with no strikes and 1 strike, too.
And one of the more intimidating things for me as a sinker ball pitcher when I was active was the fact that when a lineup would have the same tough approach and really take a good approach of taking you the opposite way and staying on your sinker away.
And Rollins drives it the other way to deep left center. Westbrook got the pitch up. Rollins making the turn, heading for third. And in there.
Well, Jake Westbrook will tell you it's a bad pitch because he left it up, but Jimmy Rollins will be able to tell you that it was a good swing because he didn't try to do too much with it. It's up and away, and he hits it where it was pitched. And talk about taking it the other way. He gets a mistake, and he drives the ball that way and makes Westbrook pay.
That's the first pitch in the at-bat that Jimmy Rollins let it get a little bit deeper in the zone so he could hit it the other way instead of getting out in front trying to hook it. And that to me is a swing that he needs to take into every single game, because they do play him to pull. He starts hitting the ball the other way. He's going to make the team's playing more honest, and it's going to open up more holes for him. But that's exactly it. Stretching it into third could have been a bang-bang play on a better throw by the shortstop, but you have to take chances when you're not scoring runs.
John Mayberry Jr. getting a start tonight, batting second and playing right field. Good numbers in limited at-bats so far this season.
Charlie likes him in there today with Westbrook keeping the ball down. He thinks Mayberry handles the low ball a lot better than the up ball, so he thinks this is a good matchup for him.
Is it Tim Hudson, he said? Mayberry's had some good at-bats against Tim Hudson and feels that Hudson has some similarities to Jake Westbrook in terms of keeping the ball down.
A little taller, angular guy at the plate, and has a little bit of a tendency to get tied up by the harder throwers that get the ball up and in on his hands.
And you look at Adams, he's playing in on the grass. He's trying to stop this run at 1. Trying to keep this 1-0 lead in the first. Now the second baseman's charging in.
Surprised?
Not with a sinker ball. No, I think, well, the right side, because, you know, the left side, if he pulls it, he's probably going to hit it harder than he would if he hit it to the other side, to the right side of the infield. So I think it's a good move to bring him in and see what happens. But, you know, if I'm Mayberry, I'm still trying to hit a hard ground ball up the middle.
Now Carpenter backs up on this next pitch. So he charged in last pitch and backed up on this pitch.
Well, and you saw him just look into the dugout and put his hands up like, you know, what do you want? I don't know if he was meant to go back on that play, because he looked in the dugout. Apparently someone yelled something at him. It's this cat and mouse thing.
They're messing with Jimmy Rollins at third to see if he's going to go on contact or he's going to make the ball go through on the right side.
I just don't like infielders running in when the pitch is crossing the hitting zone.
talking about from the hitter's perspective?
No, from the fielder, because you're not. If you're running in, you're not going to have any lateral movement, so it has to be hit directly at you, or you're not going to get to it.
Full count now on Mayberry.
Apparently, this is a big run in the first inning to save. At the infield end. On the right side, anyway.
And he walked him. Well, Jake Westbrook has not allowed an earned run in his first 2 starts of the season. Got a bit of a gift in his last start. Started against Pittsburgh, gave up 4 runs, 3 earned in the first inning. But the game was rained out after the second inning, so all the stats were washed away as well. So you can see he's had 2 terrific starts. A total of 15 2/3, has not given up an earned run. But he's in an early jam here. Rollins at third, Mayberry at first, nobody out, and Chase Utley is the batter.
We've seen the quality sinker that he's going to try and throw Utley to get the double play, but we've also seen the sinker that he's kind of made the mistakes where he had that rough outing that got washed away. But Utley right here, he's either going to try and get something on the inner half of the plate and pull it through the hole with the first base occupied, or if he gets a quality sinker away, Utley can adjust and hit the ball to left field also.
And Chase Utley's notorious for taking the first strike, and yeah, I love him as a player, but I think there's times when I think Charlie would rather, in this situation especially, first and third. I mean, that was basically a get me over sinker. You know, take a shot and try to hit one in a gap somewhere. You can't just give him strikes, especially a guy with this kind of movement.
Pulled into right field, a base hit. Rollins will jog home. Mayberry makes the turn and heads to third, and the Phillies have tied it.
Well, it's about as short and compact a swing as there is, and that tells you what I know about Chase Utley. Takes a sinker right down the middle, and now Westbrook tries to come back with another sinker, and Chase Utley leaves it middle in, which is danger zone to Chase Utley. But look how short and compact. The hands come back, a short little stride, and a very compact swing. Cuts it short a lot of times. That time, that's about as full a swing as Chase Utley's ever taken, and he uses that hole. Now they have another first and third situation where a ground ball is going to score another run. Fly ball scores another one too.
And the batter is Ryan Howard, back in there after sitting out the last 2 games with a groin injury. Slider there, it looked like on the first pitch, or only missed inside.
Yep, trying to run in on his hands, maybe thinking Howard would be aggressive, looking for a pop-up.
It seems to me it's what they've been doing to him. They come in hard off the plate and then go away, and he's been rolling over and hitting ground balls to second base. Let's see if Westbrook and Molina go back away.
How important is he, guys? Can the Phillies have any chance of contending for a postseason berth without Ryan Howard having a big year?
I don't think they can. You know, this is a guy, 277 home runs over the last 8 seasons, 857 RBIs, the most of any Major League Baseball player. He needs to have a 35, 110 at least year.
Center field. Jay the catch. Both runners are tagging. Utley into second as Mayberry comes home easily. 2-1 Phils.
Well, this is when you know that Ryan Howard's timing is just not there, even though he hit that ball a long way. Normally he stays back on this ball a little longer, and when he hits balls to center field, it's like a pull hitter. Now that's a lot better than it has been. The hip stayed in a little bit longer. He still did catch it a little bit off the end of the bat. He didn't catch it full, but right now he's just happy with that swing that produced a run without having to make an out or get an at bat. And I think that's a good sign too, that he hit it to center field and not tried to pull it.
So Rollins hits the ball to left center. Howard hits it to straightaway center, both with good results. And the Phillies, who have fallen behind in so many games, have not scored early in games much at all, have a 2-1 lead here in the bottom of the first. Runner at second. And Michael Young riding an 11-game hitting streak at the plate. Shallow left, caught. And the throw's coming into second, and a double play at second. And either Utley misread the ball badly or didn't know how many outs there were. Either way, inning over. Chase Utley evidently misreading the number of outs, ran himself into an inning-ending double play, but the Phillies have a 2-1 lead going to the top of the second. And Matt Adams is the batter for St. Louis. 11 for 21 this year, .524. This is his 6th start, all of them at first base. He's pinch hit a couple of times as well. Mike Matheny trying to find him 2, maybe 3 starts a week. A Western Pennsylvania guy from Phillipsburg, Pennsylvania, about 3.5 hours northwest of here. He's got some family in Philly tonight. Mike Matheny was aware of that and got him into the ball game tonight. Although 11 for 21 doesn't hurt.
He's got some light tower power. His damage to contact ratio is unbelievable.
He's hitting 500. He's making a lot of contact.
He had a stretch last week, guys, where he went 8 for 9, and the 8 hits included 3 homers and 2 doubles.
And they have to get him in because family's in town. That's a pretty good team.
Slippery Rock University. Matt Adams, late pick, 6'3", 260.
I mean, you'd think a guy with 6'3", 260 would have some pop. He got the gum out. This guy's a beauty.
He could have played for the '93 Phils, huh?
No, guy wouldn't have had a position.
There's ball 4 outside. Let's go back to the Utley play, guys. Last inning, just locking up on the number of outs.
Oh, well, without question, because I mean, if he read that ball off the bat that it was going to drop in, it was a bad read for a guy who's normally a really good base runner. But yeah, I believe me, I know what it's like to forget the outs here. I did it in the outfield.
He's one of the more professional, detailed baseball players you're going to find on defense, at the plate, in the batter's box, and very rarely will you see him do that. He's mad at himself.
And he's a great instinctive base runner, and he does get great reads off the bat. And when you watch him, you know, it looked like he hesitated for a second and then took off like, wait, there's 2 outs. Okay, go. That's not a good feeling in front of this crowd.
David Freese, the batter. Weakly hit ground ball to third. Safe at first is Freese.
Mike Matheny told us the one thing about David Freese, his timing has not quite there yet, but he's looking better. But what they were saying about him that made them think that he was going to come around soon, what he was moving well. He's had some aches and pains in his feet. He's had some aches and pains in his back. But right here, he had to leg this one out, and he's smelling base hit. Mike Young does a great job with the quick release, but it was just hit too slow, and he was played a little too deep. Freese beats it out.
So 2 on with nobody out, top of the second. Number 8 hitter, the shortstop. Pete Kozma is the batter, hitting .231 on the season. They're sneaking in on the corners as Kozma takes ball 1.
Well, Michael Young, he has played some third base. If you look at the footwork right there, he looked like he got a little stutter step. If he'd have came in and just took it and thrown it off balance, maybe he might have had a play on Freese right there, but the stutter step kind of got him. Got Freese the hit.
Ball and a strike on Kozma. Remember, he came up last year after the Furcal injury and played well late in the season and into the playoffs for the Cardinals, and then Furcal injuring the elbow in the spring, out the whole season. And the Cardinals have once again turned to Kozma to be their regular shortstop.
You think, why isn't he bunting? No out first and second. Well, the pitcher on deck. Going to have their 8 hitter try and drive it in, and then maybe if he can get a hit, you have Westbrook do the bunting.
The Phillies have been having trouble scoring early in games, and they drop a 2 spot on Westbrook, who hasn't given up a run all year. And now Cal Kendrick walks the leadoff hitter, an infield single, and people say, well, it's bad luck. Well, it's not bad luck because you walk the leadoff hitter and put yourself in this situation.
High fly ball to left field. Dominic Brown over to make the catch for out number 1. Now Westbrook looking down to Jose Oquendo to make sure he's in step with what Oquendo and Mike Matheny want here, with 2 on and 1 out.
They're probably going to bunt right here and get the runners into second and third. They're attempting to do that with John Jay coming up.
Well, normally, Orly, and you knew as a pitcher to bunt, you wanted to bunt this ball hard to third base to make Michael Young field it. But in a lot of cases with the Phillies, with Ryan Howard not being a great thrower of the ball, they'll bunt it to first base to him because they know he's probably not going to throw it to third base.
Westbrook handles the bat pretty well. If they charge early, I wouldn't be surprised if they let him pull it back and slash at it.
Throw down to second, but back in easily there. 2 balls and no strikes. Meanwhile, on Westbrook.
I love in this situation 2-0 count. Even if you get the bunt sign, make sure it's a strike. Because you know the pitcher on the mound, he's throwing a 2-seam fastball, which helps you get the bunt on the ground. He doesn't really have anything to get by you. It's not bad to bunt him with a 2-1 count even.
Gets it down. And gets the job done. Sacrifice moves the runners. 1-4 on the putout. Second and third, 2 down. Allows us to kind of revisit those numbers we talked about last inning. The Cardinals ridiculously good so far this season with runners in scoring position, and especially with the runners in scoring position and 2 outs, hitting .424 as a team with runners in scoring position and 2 outs this season.
And you look what they did last night against Cliff Lee. Those base hits were either up the middle or the other way. And that's just a great way to approach it, because all you know as well as anyone, the last thing you want to do with runners on base is give a guy a chance to pull the ball for a home run. So the Cardinals, okay, if you're not going to let us pull it, we're just going to take our hits the other way or up the middle and drive in our runs.
Big swing and a miss by Jay.
Now Jay got pounded in his first at bat. Kendrick kept throwing that ball in and in. You can see right there he was looking in and trying to jerk one. Now he better go back and set his sights to left field.
Saw Jimmy Rollins bluffing back the runner at second base. You don't want to do that with 2 out and run in scoring position. Get in your defensive position.
Where's he going? There's a runner on third.
He's got to be looking in for the sign. If it's a sinker away, he's got to be leaning more towards the hole with Jay. If it's a changeup, he's got to be shading more up the middle or keeping his ground. But leave that runner alone. 2 out, base hit. They're going on contact. They're going to score no matter what lead they have.
Two and one.
Well, regardless of what happens in this inning, the Cardinals score or not, Kendrick has another high pitch count inning.
Down the left field line, but foul. Cardinals off to a 10-7 start on the season, trailing here 2-1, but a base hit could bring in a couple. Ground ball to first. Howard himself to end the inning. Kendrick gets out of it. Ben Revere is coming up at the bottom of the second. We'll show you one of the best catches you will ever see when we come back. Baseball presented by Taco Bell. Along with John Kruk, Oral Hershiser, Buster Olney, I'm Dan Schulman. We are here at Citizens Bank Park in Philadelphia. Bottom of the second. The Phillies lead the Cardinals 2-1. And you're looking at Dominic Brown, the Phillies left fielder tonight, leading it off against Jake Westbrook. Brown had a big spring, and it looked like was finally ready to realize all that potential that everybody here in Philadelphia has been reading about and hearing about for a couple of years. But now Truckey's come out of the gate hitting .218.
Yeah, and it's an issue with the Phillies right now because he's not the type of player like a Ryan Howard or a Jimmy Rollins who are struggling early that you can live with and you wait for them to come around. He has no track record. And you know, eventually there comes a time when Dominic Brown has to say, okay, I have to take this position. I have to earn it instead of having it given to you. And he has to start producing or else he's going to find himself back in the minors.
Ground ball to second, one down. That'll bring up Ben Revere. And as we mentioned, you've probably seen it on Web Gems on a Baseball Tonight. One of the best catches you will ever see. Started off kind of going to his left and then said, hey, that ball's hit hard. And look at that diving effort. Extending himself as much as he could. You will not see a guy leap higher or further to make a catch that Ben Revere did right there. And that was his rep with Minnesota. He doesn't hit a whole lot. Has never hit a home run in the big leagues, but he can go get him in the outfield.
He was at the top of the order in front of Jimmy Rollins at the beginning of the year, and he's been so bad offensively that they've had to move him down in the order. Been working really hard on his lower half.
Fouls it off. The count 0-2 as we go down to Buster Olney.
Guys, Ben told me that when the ball took off, he thought there was no way that he would get there. But when he did, other players on the field went crazy. You could hear the fans yelling at him from the outfield seats. They're going crazy. The only guy who didn't was Cliff Lee when he got back to the dugout. What Cliff Lee said to him was, yeah, you better have caught that one. Then after the game, he said he literally heard from dozens of other players with texts and tweets.
That's a tough crowd. Cliff Lee.
It's a little dry sense of humor.
Fouled off, still 1-2.
The impressive thing about that catch was the elevation that he got. You know, you see a lot of guys dive, but it's kind of lengthwise and along the ground.
And he hit that surface out there on the warning track and slid on that and got up and made a great throw to Chase Utley. I think Chase Utley was playing second that night, and the relay to first base to complete a double play.
So Todd Frazier should have had a double, maybe a triple and an RBI. Instead, it's a fly ball into a double play. Another ground ball to second, 2 down as they keep the speedster off the base paths. ESPN has more Major League Baseball coming your way this week. Tomorrow at 7, an American League East Division matchup. The Yankees take on Evan Longoria and the Rays, who had a big win over Oakland today. And then Wednesday, Matt Kemp and the Dodgers are at Citi Field to take on David Wright at the Mets, also at 7 Eastern. Both games also live on Watch ESPN. The Mets won again today. To a good start. And I know both of you guys have seen Matt Harvey and are incredibly impressed by what you've seen.
Well, not only the fastball, and every 3-inning segment, Matt Harvey's velocity goes up. And I think he's up around 96 miles an hour in the last 3 innings. His breaking stuff's not too shabby either.
And the big matchup against Steven Strasburg on Friday night.
He's about as polished a young pitcher as I've seen come up in a while. You know, Strasburg came up with the polish, but you know, when you talk to other pitching people, they said, you know, he's kind of a risk for injury. Matt Harvey's about as smooth a delivery, and that ball explodes out of his hand at 96, 97.
You harken back to the days of Dwight Gooden.
Jake Westbrook doing his thing. 3 up and 3 down on groundouts to retire the Phillies in the bottom of the second. We'll see the hot Carlos Beltran due up second for the Cardinals when we come back. All right, thanks, guys. Back here in Philadelphia, 2-1 lead for the Phillies as we go to the top of the third. Chilly night as they brave the elements here to watch their beloved Phils, who won the National League East Division 5 years in a row before slipping to a .500 third place finish last season. Now Kendrick on the mound, and leading off the third for the Cardinals is Matt Carpenter, whose home run in the first accounts for the St. Louis offense tonight. Old school, no batting gloves. High strike, 0-2. Swing and a miss. Out number one.
He gave up the home run on a mistake up, but he got a lot of the plate. This one, he decided to go up the ladder, and he ran it right off the edge of the plate. And this ball is pretty hard to hit. The one that he made a mistake was more middle in and up. That one running away, high and away.
Here's Beltran, who's homered in each of the first 3 games of the series. Not this time. Ground ball down to first. Howard the easy play, 2 down.
This could be what Kyle Kendrick needed, a quick inning. Keep the pitch count down and hopefully be able to go deeper into the game if you're a Phillies fan. Of course, Alan Craig had a long at bat, fouled off a bunch of balls, and wouldn't surprise me to see him take a strike here, but not only to give Westbrook a chance to rest, but to try to prolong the inning and make Kendrick throw some more pitches.
And he does take it. He takes a strike. Craig drove in 92 runs a year ago, has yet to hit a home run this year, has 11 RBIs. Mike Matheny saying pregame he thinks Craig is getting closer to getting locked in and being the hitter he was last year. That's what makes you think about this Cardinal lineup. Yeah, the scoring position numbers will even out. They have to. But you figure Craig's going to get hot. You figure Freese is going to get going. And let's not forget Matt Holliday's not even in the lineup tonight. I mean, they've got sluggers up and down the lineup.
This can't be fun if you're a pitcher having to face this lineup when if four or five of them are hot at the same time. Good luck.
Matt Holliday trying to stay warm, looking on for the bench tonight. Holliday out, so Matt Adams could get a spot in the lineup tonight.
Well, Matt Holliday on the bench with Bastardo, the left-handed reliever for the Phillies in the bullpen. That's a great weapon to have if you are Mike Matheny. If they build an inning late in this game and they've got a left-on-left situation, you can have that guy coming off the bench. That's a little interesting thing for Charlie Manuel and the Phillies to deal with later.
Still 2-2 on Craig. Kendrick both started and relieved last year for the Phillies, and he's bounced back and forth over the course of his career, but he came into camp this year knowing he would be a starter. Won 9 games in the second half of last season. Broken back, ground ball down to third. Long throw in time, and the inning is over. Jimmy Rollins due up second. Phillies with the lead here on Sunday Night Baseball. as Jimmy alluded to, she also is responsible, Crucky, for a little bit of that swagger and attitude that Jimmy Rollins takes out there to the field.
Well, he has that, and you know, early in his career, Jimmy Rollins in the city of Philadelphia was known as a red light player. When the red lights of the cameras are the brightest is when he seems to play his best, and he's brash. You know, he came into spring training one year and said, we're the team to beat, after the Mets, you know, thought that they were supposedly the best team in the division, and they fell behind by a lot of games and came back in September and won it and made him a sort of a prophet.
Won the MVP back in 07. 1-2 the count on Kendrick. Now what you hear about this Phillies nucleus is, can they do it one more time? A strike 3 call to get Kendrick, but the Rollins, Utley, Howard, Lee, Halladay, nobody disputes any of the accomplishments these guys have had, but can they get it done one more time? A lot of money locked up in guys in their 30s. Atlanta, Washington, both potent competitors in the National League East.
Yeah, you look at this, is the window closing for the Philadelphia Phillies? And I think this is a team that could go either way. This team could end up being pretty good, or it could end up being really bad with the age catching up. And you don't see much power. Jimmy Rollins, they're going to look to him for average and RBIs, but not a lot of home runs. They're going to look to Chase Utley for average and RBIs, not a lot of home runs. Michael Young, same way. The big piece in the middle, Ryan Howard, has to come through with the power.
Chopper to Ward first, and the tag applied by Adams, 2 down.
Well, when you look at this team and how it's constructed, they know that they have this year, possibly next year, as a chance to be competitive and try to win another division and hopefully get to the World Series is their goal. But I look at this team as with Jimmy Rollins, skills aren't as good as they were. Still plays a great shortstop. Chase Utley the same with the knee injuries. His power's down, like Oral said. Ryan Howard, I think with Michael Young, the 4 of them have to have really good years if they're going to stay with the Washington Nationals and the Atlanta Braves in this division. I just think, I don't care how much pitching you have, you know, whatever, you know, starters they have, and Kendrick's been great, you know, so now they have 4 strong. They still have to score runs to beat the Washington Nationals and the Atlanta Braves, and right now, in my opinion, I think they're a third-place team.
It's hard to say that the resumes are there, but to really think these guys can produce for the whole season, not get hurt, and put a consistent year together, the whole group of them. And what happens with them, they have a lot of money invested in very few players, so they don't have a lot of borderline cash to put across their whole roster. They've got 7 guys making a ton of money, and that leaves another 18 to fill the roster.
Got some good news the last couple of times out for Roy Halladay, as he pitched well against the Marlins and then pitched well against the Cardinals. And that was a big concern after the spring that he had in his first 2 starts of the season. Cliff Lee, though, you look at the other side, hadn't walked more than 1 in his last 20 starts, walked 3 in an inning last night. Very uncharacteristic of him. And if you're looking to be optimistic about the Phillies, Delman Young, Carlos Ruiz are coming. They're going to be part of the roster soon.
April 28th, Carlos Ruiz will come back from his suspension. Delman Young is down in Clearwater playing some exhibition games, or playing for the minor league team. They're trying to get him up to AAA to at least play for a week before they get him back.
Mayberry with a base hit up the middle, on base for the 2nd time tonight. They started their run winning the National League East in 07, won it 5 years in a row through 2011. 500 last year. Now you look at the money owed to guys who are well into their 30s. Those numbers include this year and go to the end of whatever that player's contract is. Halladay's got a vesting option for next year. Utley's a free agent after this year. Boy, big contracts. A couple of contracts that even if they were to be interested in trading them, they might be untradeable.
I think down the stretch, you know, the second half, the trade deadline, if the Phillies are not in it, or they don't think they can be competitive in this division, you know, Roy Halladay, if he continues to pitch good, he could be a trade piece because he's on the last year of a contract and no team's obligated for the following year. But you look at Howard, Utley, or Utley's off too, and Michael Young after this year. But you know, any other pitchers, or Ryan Howard, if they decide they want to clean house, you know, so that's what someone told me today. Why don't they clean house? How?
Halladay and Michael Young, the only two in the second half really kind of movable pieces.
And Utley.
Yeah.
If they want to go that way.
By the end of the year, Chase Utley might be your best player.
Well, Atlanta's off to a great start, although they lost today. They're beaten by Pittsburgh 4-2. They're still 13-5 on the season, and that's with Freddie Freeman on the DL and Jason Hayward and B.J. Upton not swinging the bats well yet. And Washington, they lost today as well, beaten by the Mets 2-0. The Nationals are 10-8. Phillies are 7-11 right now in fourth place. There goes the runner, and he is in there without a throw. Mayberry started so early he almost stopped before he started again.
Well, he has Jake Westbrook time right here, and he holds the ball, and it's either a 1, 2, or 3 count probably. 1001, 1002, 1003. I lift my leg, I go home. Mayberry just read it, and Juan Samuel was a pretty good base stealer in his day, and he learned a lot from Dave. They all learned a lot from Davey Lopes when Davey was the base running first base coach for the Phillies, and they timed it. And when you have Molina back there, you better time it right.
That's the only guy you're going to steal the base off is the pitcher with Molina back there. That's the best arm and one of the quickest releases around in the big leagues.
Career 41% caught stealing, but nothing he could do there.
You see the Rawlings with the gold there, with all the gold gloves. He's one right there on his chest. Not only does he get a gold glove, he gets a gold emblem on his chest protector.
He's got 5 of them already and more to come.
Didn't he win the platinum?
Yeah, this is a new thing.
The best fielder of any position
in your league. Yes.
In your
league.
Best
fielder in the game.
Yeah, baseball put it in 2 years ago, so they pick one defender in each league to win the platinum glove, the best overall defender in your league, and Molina has won that both years that's been around. 5 consecutive gold gloves for Molina, 4-time All-Star. Jake Westbrook says in his 3 starts this year, he's shaken off Molina twice. Wonder if that was one that Molina called. Big swing and a miss to get Utley and end the inning. As good as there is. 2-1 Phils at the end of 3. Bank Park. 2-1 Phillies going to the top of the 4th. Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN. And Yadier Molina leading it off for the Cardinals. 0 for 1 on the night. 6 for 9 in the series. Asked Mike Matheny about Molina. The first thing that he says is, I could talk about him all day. And Mike Matheny knows a thing or two about catchers. Remember that Matheny won 4 Gold Gloves as a big league catcher. Molina's done him one better with 5 and counting.
You can talk about his offense. He's there in the batter's box and done a great job. The defense behind the plate, the throwing, but the way he is like a general on the field, positioning the defense even as before the pitch is called. He's got some very subtle body language signals that if he knows the pitcher is locked in and he doesn't like where the defense is, or he subtly wants to move the shortstop or the center fielder or the second baseman, he has very good communication skills to not let anybody know what he's doing or where he's putting people before he calls a pitch.
Full count.
I thought it was interesting what Mike Matheny said, that halfway through the game he'll sit with John Jay, the center fielder, and go over, we might change something on a guy, or he's doing something different in the box, he's moving up or moving back, so we might pitch him differently, and then John Jay will lay all that information to his right fielder and left fielder, and be like the cop out there to tell guys where they should be playing.
Bounces one into center field, a base hit. Now here's some quotes from some people around the majors, how they feel about Yadier Molina. His manager Mike Matheny says he's the toughest in the league. Brian McCann says he's the best defensive catcher in all of baseball. Kyle Oesch, who used to pitch for the Cardinals, said I shook him off 4 times. I gave up 3 hits. Tony La Russa, who managed Molina for a number of years, says the game has never seen a better catcher than Yadier Molina. So high praise indeed for a guy who obviously learned well from his older brothers, Benji and Jose. Benji, by the way, now the assistant hitting coach for the Cardinals. But Molina, in terms of the hitting, the arm, blocking pitches, working with the pitching staff, and then the conditioning to play 140 games a year behind the plate. A lot of them in the brutal heat of St. Louis in the summer. Adams with a fly ball that'll drop in for a base hit.
Yadi's this year has changed his body composition. He got on a little better diet, what he said, and he looks a little thinner, a little tighter, and feels like that's going to allow him to play more innings, catch more innings, play more at bats, and he doesn't want to come out. He takes more ground balls in infield practice than the infielders. That's how much he wants to play, and he's all about winning.
Remember Matheny saying Molina wears glasses off the field, so Matheny took Molina's glasses off, put them on himself before he told him he wasn't going to play Friday night, and he started the conversation by saying, you wouldn't hit a guy wearing glasses, would you? But he said it's a fight every time he tries to take Molina out of the lineup. Poor Tony Cruz has only started 1 game this year. Two on, nobody out. David Freese, the batter. Let's go down to Buster.
Guys, Benji Molina obviously knows Yadi very well, and he told me that until he joined the Cardinals, it was around him every day. He couldn't believe exactly how much work he does. He said it was far more than I ever expected. And he said, by the way, that when he joined the team, he said, you know what? Don't worry about me overshadowing you or trying to make you do things. I'll wait for you to come to me.
Benji with a long, productive career in the big leagues. One other anecdote from Mike Matheny, as people around the Cardinals know, Molina spent a lot of time following around Albert Pujols when Pujols was with the Cardinals. And Matheny said, Albert Pujols is the single most determined, competitive player probably that he has ever seen. And Molina learned some of that, spending all that time with Pujols over the years as well.
I like what Mike Matheny said, though. After he said that statement, he said, but 0 for 4. A couple strikeouts, might have had a pass ball. They win. He's the happiest guy in the clubhouse, and that just speaks volume when your leader is a guy who generally cares for his teammates and could care less if he does well or not in the game, as long as your team wins. Yeah, that's a guy that you build around.
You know, our baseball insider Peter Pasquarelli had a cute story from Benji Molina. He said that right from the day that Yadier could pick a bat up, he used to throw batting practice to him, and now they've come full circle, and as the assistant batting coach, he's throwing batting practice to his brother again.
You wonder if Benji will announce him and present him his Hall of Fame plaque if he gets in.
Strike 3 called to get Freeze.
You fall behind the count. You've got first and second, no out. You've got a 2-1 lead, and you're getting to one of those kind of hump innings, and you've got to battle your way back in the middle of the order. Kyle Kendrick makes some quality pitches away, makes another one right there. The catches K-Zone doesn't get the call, but goes right back to the well. Fastball way to Freeze, hoping he's going to roll over it, hit him into a double play to help him with the inning. No, he gets the strikeout. Now he's got to get back on the mound and throw some more quality pitches and get out of this jam, preserve the lead.
Already 4 strikeouts for Kendrick, not known as a big strikeout guy over the years. There's a fly ball to left field. Brown will make the catch. Cosma retired 2 down. The cheer you hear, a sarcastic one. They were on him for that ball that dropped in front of him 2 batters ago off the bat of Matt Adams. Looked like kind of a big swing off the end of the bat, and they got out on Brown pretty good when that ball dropped in. As I know that comes as a shock to you in this town, Greg.
Not really. Well, how can I say this and be nice? He's not a gifted outfielder. Let's just put that out there right now. So, yeah, like you said though, when Matt Adams, a guy 6'3", 260 pounds, takes a full swing, your initial reaction is to go back. Now, would they have been less happy if he'd have came in and dove for it and it would have went past him and Adams would end up on second? Probably not.
You tell us. You played here for 6 years.
No, they wouldn't have. Well, they're not happy either way.
Right.
But you know, every ball should be caught, and every and if you're not going to dive for it, and you're going to play off on it and play it on the hop, then they're not going to be real happy with you.
How long did it take you as a Phillies player to kind of come to grips with what the fans were like here and to not have it affect you?
It wasn't long after I was here. I was playing left field, and I caught a ball. I caught a ball with a runner on second base, and what I presumed was 2 outs. And there was only 1. And Bobby Bonilla tagged up and scored, and I was jogging down like, look, what is he doing? This inning's over. And then I had to lead off the next inning, so I heard boos. I struck out John Smiley, hard thrower, nasty slider, lefty. Struck me out on 3 pitches, so I heard more boos. But then I got a couple hits later and drove in a few runs. We ended up winning the game, and they asked me after the game, what were you thinking? I said, well, obviously I wasn't. And I used a couple colorful words to describe the play I made. And
shocking.
And I think from then on, the fans said, okay, at least he's going to be honest and not, make excuses. And there was no excuse for being stupid. I think I was born that way.
Yeah, you're being humble. They've accepted you in a big way. We were down there in Clearwater in spring training, and they absolutely love you, and they still love you around here.
And they bring us a lot of food.
They have.
They sure do.
Greg Lazinski did a nice job for us.
Yeah, the Bulls sent us some ribs and Polish sausage sandwiches and pulled pork. And
juggled by Kendrick, underhand to first, and the Cardinals leave a couple of men on. Ryan Howard's going to lead it off with the Phillies holding a 1-run lead. ESPN Sunday Night Baseball, presented by Taco Bell, is brought to you by Mercedes-Benz. The best or nothing. And Lowe's. Lowe's never stops improving. The Phillies 2, the Cardinals 1. Going to the bottom of the fourth here at Citizens Bank Park, middle of the order. Beginning with Ryan Howard leading off the inning for Philadelphia. Time now to take a look at Do More, brought to you by Safeco. Won an MVP back in 2006, had 4 consecutive monster seasons. Numbers down the last 3 years. They were going down even before the Achilles injury, which ended his 2011 postseason. Happened on the last pitch of the Phillies year 2011 in the playoffs, and then obviously impacted him a lot in 2012. He only played in 71 games last year. Is that Achilles 100%, or is it just as good as it's going to get?
He told me before the game, he said it's a non-issue. It's 100%, but yeah, he still limps, and I don't know if that's now habit because he got so used to limping coming back from that injury.
Well, that's one thing I really noticed about him watching him in batting practice the last couple of days. It just doesn't seem like he's aggressive with his bat speed as he used to be. He doesn't. It's not that he can't generate the power. He just doesn't look like he's cutting it loose.
And I'm wondering if it's because he has struck out so many times over the last, over the entirety of his career, that, and the people get on him here a lot about striking out, especially in key situations, that he's afraid to. That's the swing.
There it is.
Foul ball.
I mean, he told me before the game, he said, I don't even know if I can hit a ball to left field. And I said, well, you better tonight off a sinker baller. And, this is what he has to do. He's staying in a little bit better. The hip still flies out a little bit, but he is making a conscious effort. You see his hands, how they stay, say inside the ball, because he's sending his barrel of the bat to hit the ball the other way against Westbrook. Now, if I'm Westbrook and Molina, I'm going to try to crowd him right here and try to get in on him.
They do, but now with a fastball, with a breaking ball, and he got enough of it to line it into right field, a base hit.
That's that cutter that Jake Westbrook and Molina like to run in on lefties, and Ryan Howard did a great job making an adjustment from that fastball away that he almost hit to left field for a home run, and here he speeds up the hips. You see Westbrook gets on the outside of that ball to try and cut it in there inside, and Ryan Howard did a great job pulling his hands in tight to his body, popping his hip, clearing that hip, get the hands through, and hitting that line drive to right.
Yeah, that's usually a swing he gets out in front of, and his top hand rolls over and he smothers it.
Leadoff man aboard for Michael Young. Double play ball. And the Cardinals turn it with ease. So Michael Young should a fly ball into a double play, although that wasn't his fault. That was Utley's fault on the base running, and now he is grounded into a double play. Quickly 2 down for Westbrook. The double play so important for him because of all the sinkers he throws, and he got one there. That'll bring up Dominic Brown, who grounded out his first time up.
Jake Westbrook over the last couple years, we talked about Yadier Molina eating better and having a better body. Jake Westbrook has thinned down another 16, 20 pounds and really taking care of himself as he crossed over that 35-year-old barrier. Wants to pitch for a lot longer. He's got a lot more life in his body. Feels like he's a lot stronger, deeper into the game.
Gave up carbs.
Yep.
Just cut them out.
Trying to think of that Polish sausage sandwich had that carbs in it.
Had a little bit of everything in it.
Hey, there's a that's ice cream. I can tell by the wrapping. Hey, when a Polish guy, Greg Luzinski, cooks you a Polish sausage sandwich, you better eat it. Plus, he's bigger than me.
That's right. The Bull. 3-0 green light.
Did you guys get your cheesesteak?
I think it's still in the back of the booth.
You guys killing me all morning. You got to get a cheesesteak. You got to get a cheesesteak. They got 2 sent up here for you.
We had salads.
Cooked to your order, and you went and ate salad.
I wanted mine delivered in the 5th inning.
Oh, well.
It's like first inning.
Sorry we disappointed you, Greg.
We can always go to Patsugino's tonight.
A 2-out walk to Brown will bring up Ben Revere. Jake Westbrook, 99 and 96 in his career, looking for a career win number 100 tonight. He has been a member of the Yankees, the Indians, and the Cardinals in his big league career. You're a guy who has had 1,142 plate appearances in the big leagues and has not hit a home run.
He played a lot of those games at Target Field, and now he's playing in this play. I think he might hit one this year. He has a lot of movement though in his hands. Look at all this movement. Just say he and John Jay are similar.
Yep.
With all the movement that they have. Not that twitching, elbow twitching thing he does there, but how they drop their hands and fling them back up to try to get into the zone. And probably early in the season these guys are going to struggle to get going because of that, all that movement.
When he got moved down in the order from the top of the order down here, he started working with the hitting coach Steve Henderson, and they're really trying to incorporate his legs and get him to think more about the lower half. With that much hand movement, you can forget about driving with the legs. They're trying to increase his strength and his bat speed with his lower half.
The smart move by Jake Westbrook thrown over. Remember, Mayberry just took off on him and he didn't even look at him. Dominic Brown, the pitch before, he was leaking out like he tried to read something too, and now Westbrook threw over and might keep him honest.
Closer this time.
Well, they're leaning. They must have a count on Westbrook of how long he holds the ball before he delivers. You know, a lot of pitchers aren't even conscious, are they, World, of how long they hold the ball, but the way the first base coaches are.
Yeah, somebody struggling with their mechanics or getting themselves in order out there can get lost.
Ground ball to short. And the inning is over. End of 4, 2-1, and the cheesesteaks just keep on coming. 2-1 top five. Phillies leading the Cardinals. Let's get some. Time now for some FaceTime, brought to you by Edward Jones. Between innings, Buster Olney with Phillies pitching coach Rich Doobie.
Rich, a cold night here tonight. How much does that affect him early in terms of gripping the ball?
Well, it depends. If you get a good sweat going, you can keep that sweat, you're all right. Last night it was windy also, and that really, I think, affected Cliff Lee more than it will affect Kendrick tonight.
Now, what adjustments have you seen him make since that first inning?
Well, the first inning he got ahead of a couple guys, just wasn't able to put them away. And they're good. They stay in that bats and they keep fighting. And he's starting to make a few better pitches now and able to get his changeup over. So hopefully that'll continue.
Rich, thanks.
John Jay with the fly ball. Revere there, one down.
We take a look at the T-Mobile hot zone, cold zone. If you hit below 250, that's blue. That's good for Kyle Kendrick. This is against his sinker in 2012. 220 overall, but look across that bottom. When he keeps the ball down, that's when he gets the hitters out below 250. Gets it slightly up. Doesn't matter what location. You're creeping into that above 350 area. That's bad. And those are bats that end in a sinking fastball. And when he keeps it down, he's pretty effective.
Carpenter fouls it back. Or what do you gather that Kendrick has learned over the last couple of years from Roy Halladay, and how's that helped?
Well, I think really being able to switch from being a sinker slider pitcher to watching Halladay use his changeup, and Kendrick now uses the split change. I think commanding the fastball into lefties has been key, where Roy shows both sides of the plate with both pitches, really with Roy with about 4 pitches, but Kendrick with 2 pitches. And I think the other thing that really happens is following him around with the conditioning and the mental side of the game. Not real mechanical, but one of the mechanical adjustments he's had to make, he has an idiosyncrasy with his delivery where he moves his feet. He slides his feet, his right foot over to his left foot before he puts it on the rubber, and he's had to become very, very disciplined with the placement of that back foot on the rubber because he moves and dances so much with it. It has really helped him with commanding the inside part of the plate, the lefties. You make that movement and don't get it on the correct angle every time, you'll struggle with your command. But what he has really worked hard on over the last year and a half is as he makes that slide, because he didn't want to eliminate that move. He's had it for so long in his life. But so what he had to do was make the move with better discipline. When you're a young pitcher, you can get away with some bad mechanics, because usually the reason you're so good in high school and college and the minor leagues, you're just better. But you get up to this level where the edges really come into play, you've not only got to be good, you've got to be disciplined and consistent.
Strikeout number 5 for Kyle Kendrick.
Well, he hits his spot right here. We saw that T-Mobile hot zone, cold zone. Remember where the blues were down on the bottom? Well, that's where he went. It didn't matter if it was on the corner. As long as it was down, he got a little break from the umpire, but he lives down there. He got the call.
2 down, nobody on for Beltran, 1 for 2. Well, it looks like a quick inning for Kyle Kendrick. 3 up and 3 down they go. 2-1 Phils going to the bottom of the 5th. classes in NFL history. 30 for 30 focuses on the 6 quarterbacks taken in the first round, a class that included 3 future Hall of Famers and the impact they all had on the NFL. 30 for 30, Elway to Marino, presented by Buick, Tuesday at 9 on ESPN and also live on Watch ESPN. Eric Kratz, first pitch swinging, high fly ball, playable deep right center. Beltran makes the backhanded catch, as that was almost a disaster between him and Jay.
We got a center fielder and an ex-center fielder out there playing right. Jay was yelling and waving, but Beltran took it, even though it was to his backhand side. And coming over from the right side, you can see there was a little mix-up, but they know the center fielder goes in front, the right fielder goes behind. Jay pulled up just in time.
The normal corner outfield is you give to the center fielder. And I guess the veteran Beltran said, well, I think I'll handle this. Been around a little longer than you.
0-2 on Kendrick, who struck out his first time up. All the scoring coming in the first inning tonight. Matt Carpenter with a home run in the top of the first. Phillies got 2 back on RBIs by Utley and Howard in the bottom half. Swing and a miss, and Kendrick is gone, 2 down.
Cricky, what happens? You guys talk, you're on the bench, you go to spring training together, you play next to each other, you played in the outfield. What happens on that ball as you guys come closer and closer together?
Well, when you look at guys that collide, normally it's 2 guys who can run, so I never had that issue in the outfield because I just let the center fielder catch everything. But, you know, there's not a great big crowd here, so it couldn't have been crowd noise, but, you know, it looked like John Jay was giving the hand sign and Beltran wasn't looking at him.
Yeah.
And, you know, sometimes when you give a hand sign,
you just get a brain cramp.
And you're
sometimes
concentrating on the ball that you don't, you know, you're not paying attention to what he's doing.
I know the fans at home, or if I'm sitting watching a game at home and we watch that and they go, how does that happen? You guys play so many games. You're in the big leagues. You make so much money. How does that happen?
But how many times does that play occur? Probably once a month.
Yeah.
Rollins finds some room on the right side, and he's 2 for 3.
He's donating some bats to the Broken Bat Fund, charity events that the Phillies will have, I'm sure. That's the second one Westbrook's got today.
But Ryan Howard's going to have to autograph them all because they have his name on them, using that long Ryan Howard bat.
All right, guys, 2 down. Rollins, even though he's getting up in years, still steals bases. Mayberry's up. Molina's behind the plate. Here we go.
I think you go early. I would prefer a guy go early with 2 outs if I was hitting. You know, you don't want him to run with 2 strikes. Run early and now give me a chance to work a count.
Wow, what a sinker that was. That ball looked like it was going to be a fastball right down the middle and dove at his back foot.
It looked like Westbrook went quicker, too, with Rollins over at first because, you know, I'm sure someone on the bench said, look, they're getting good jumps off of you. Mayberry and Dominic Brown started to take off once also and stopped. So you better change your rhythm going toward home.
Now, if you're Rollins, you're not only aware of Molina's arm if you're trying to steal second, you can't take your time getting back to first after Molina catches a pitch because he'll fire down to first in a heartbeat.
Looked like the smile and the laugh over there with Jimmy Rollins between he and Juan Samuel, the first base coach, that Juan's saying he's going on 1001, 1002, and Jimmy's laughing like he's going on 1001. I got no shot to get a jump. Juan comes over and gives him a whisper in between almost every pitch. They have a little conversation. First signal was sinker away. The next signal was cutter away. And the third one, the 3, was a slider. See what Westbrook wants. So.
Is that the throw over?
Change up. And it ends the inning. A man left on by the Phils. 2-1. Home team leading at the end of 5. Lead the Cardinals top of the 6th. Of course, Boston, the center of the country for so many reasons. This past week, the Red Sox are back on the field, played 2 today, and now they're playing at night, and they're off to a terrific start. A 12-5 record, excuse me, and the starting pitching led by John Lester. Clay Buchholz has been terrific. Such an emotional day yesterday at Fenway Park with that pregame ceremony. So much emotion in the stands, pregame, during the game, as Boston rallied. Everybody rallied around Boston, around the country over the last several days, as we were all riveted to the coverage of the events following the tragedy at the Marathon on Monday. That was just 6 days ago. Boy. Did he go? He did not. A ball and a strike on Alan Craig. You know, Ben Revere, we showed you that incredible catch that he made a few days ago. He had a Pray for Boston sticker or something stitched onto his glove.
Some white athletic tape and put it on the back of his glove and then wrote the message.
Yep. They played Sweet Caroline at Yankee Stadium to show support for everybody in Boston. Neil Diamond showed up at Fenway Park, I guess literally unannounced.
Yes.
I got on a plane, showed up
there on the switchboard at about 12:20 in the afternoon and said, "I'm here. Can I come out?" And they were like, "Yeah."
Is it
with
okay
open
if I
arms.
Yeah. And a liner into center for a base hit for Craig. Well, I think as we go back over the last week and some of the images within the world of baseball, as fans in the ballparks around the country reached out, showed support and love and anything that they could for the people in Boston. The 617 area code, the area code in Boston. on display as the Red Sox were playing in Cleveland, the pregame ceremony when so many of the first responders were honored. Some of the injured were there as well, and then David Ortiz taking the mic and voicing his feelings about the city of Boston, as only Big Papi can. It's a week filled with tragedy and recovery, and as we always see from this kind of a tragic event, people coming together. And that's what certainly happened in Boston and for Boston all week long. Molina fouls it off the mask of Kratz, and the count is 0-2. Kendrick nearing 100 pitches. And Chad Durbin is up in the Phillies pen.
Durbin's a swing man. He's give multiple innings to Charlie Manuel. I'm sure Charlie's hoping Kendrick gets out of this one, and then he can piece the bullpen together to get the Papelbon if this game stays the same.
Some of those early innings when the Cardinals built Kendrick's pitch count can sometimes expose the underbelly, the weakness of the Philly bullpen, which has been hard for them to get to the tail end of the bullpen, to Mike Adams and Jonathan Papelbon.
Strike 3 called, much to the displeasure of Yadier Molina.
Quality pitch right there that looks like it's going to be a ball in the left-hand batter's box, but it creeps back over the corner. Kendrick here just takes it and just dots it over there and locks up Molina.
He has 4 strikeouts looking in this game so far. You can see why. That's a borderline. I'm sure Yadi thought that ball was low. As a hitter, I would guarantee it was low.
Here's Matt Adams. He takes low ball 1. Adams has walked and singled, so he has raised that average from 524 at the beginning of the game up to 545. He is 12 for 22 so far this season.
He's going to make it really hard for them to only start it twice a week. He looks very comfortable in the box. There's not a lot of excess movement. He's very short to the ball. He seems to really understand the strike zone. And he looks like a large Joey Votto just up there, the way how calm he is and the power he's got. And that's just a really good take for a young fella. That ball's up in his eyes. Looks like you want to start the bat. It's running off the plate, and he just takes it like he knew it was coming.
The problem he's going to have is he goes 1 for 3. The average drops dramatically. that could be a mental letdown for him. 1 for 2 it goes down.
It was interesting that Mike Matheny said he'll watch him hit in the batting cage, and you are looking through the mesh of the batting cage and how there are very few squares in the mesh that he moves around. So Matheny uses the graph paper like visual, like we have right there trying to shoot Mike Matheny, of watching those lines and see how far he moves, and he says he moves so little.
Got another hit.
He's going to lead the league in hit.
On his way to third is Craig. On his way to second is Adams.
Well, this is what makes a guy so difficult to pitch to. It's a guy with power like Adams has. You know, Mike Matheny said he has unbelievable power, but the ability to go down in the strike zone and serve the ball to left field, down the left field line. How do you pitch to this guy now? I mean, do you try to jam him next time? Do you keep trying to pitch him away and play him away? Because this is just a guy that's covering every bit of home plate with the barrel of the bat, and he just fights one off right there and hits it down the left field line, where a lot of guys that would be a jam shot maybe to the left fielder or a rollover to the second baseman. He hits a double down the line.
Now hitting .565. Buster?
And of course, he was a 23rd round draft pick in part because of that body. Scouts thought he simply had a bad body and it wouldn't translate in professional baseball. But Dan Duquette, who's currently the general manager of the Orioles, actually coached him as an amateur. And guys, he told me that Adams absolutely reminded him of a player who played for a long time in the big leagues named John Kruk.
Now, does that mean...
I never hit 5, whatever.
But does
60.
that mean they thought he had a really good bat, or was that like a backhanded bad body shot that you just took right there?
Well, we'd have to ask Mr. Duquette that, but you know, I don't know what to say about that.
Well, he's kind of as big as like an Adam Dunn, but he's making contact, you know, like a Tony Gwynn.
Here's David Freese. Runners at second and third, 1 out. Cardinals down a run in the 6th. Freese, an infield hit and a strikeout. Suffered a back injury in the spring, started the year on the DL. As we mentioned a little bit earlier, Mike Matheny talked about back, feet, saying Freese kind of has an older body than what he really is or what he should be right now. And you just wonder if he ever had a healthy season, 600 at bats, what is the ceiling for David Freese? Will he ever be able to find out?
I'm sure Mike Matheny would like to see him hit a grounder up the middle.
Hit a grounder to third. Look at home by Young. Throw to first for the out there as the run comes in to score to tie it.
Well, this is one of those situations where Michael Young wasn't playing in, but he wasn't playing a deep third base. But when the ball's hit to him, if it's hit hard, if David Freese actually scalded that ball, you have a chance. But this is one, okay, I'm going to play it safe. There might have been an opportunity at home. You see, Kratz was already leaking out in front of home plate. There could have been a play at home plate, but you think, okay, if I don't make this play now that we have the potential of a big inning, let me take the out, tie game 2-2, and we'll go from here.
I know the guy who wants him to really throw that ball home. That's Kyle Kendrick. This is probably his last inning, and there goes his possible W.
Selfish.
No. Preventing a run.
Yeah, for you. That's the only reason why we played, to prevent runs for you guys.
Cosmo, little looper into right field, a base hit. Adams will be held. And now Cosma heading towards second and safe. Throw down to third and safe there is Adams. What a bizarre play.
Well, Ryan Howard's got to give the ball up a little bit earlier to Jimmy Rollins so that Rollins has a sure tag out, or even if he has to run, Cosma back to first and keep an eye on third base. They can get the out before the run scores at home. It's a good, solid, strong throw here, and does a great job cutting it off, but don't take that step and don't put the ball down by your waist, right, John? So that you can't make the quick throw. Keep the ball up.
Well, the last thing you want to do as a first baseman be running away from where you have to throw the ball if Adams goes home. The best thing to do is to give it to Jimmy Rollins as quick as possible and let Jimmy Rollins, with the stronger arm, more accurate arm, make the decision on if he's coming home, I can throw. If not, I can run Cosma back and tag him out before Adams can score to end the inning.
Westbrook trying to squeeze home a run, and they won't do it. Mike Matheny had Descalso out in the on deck, tried to bunt for a base hit, to get home a run. They had Descalso out in the on deck circle, pulled him back. Matheny sent Westbrook up, trying to bunt home a run, didn't work. Sunday Night Baseball presented by Taco Bell. Bottom 6 tied at 2. Interesting ball game tonight on a chilly night here in Philadelphia. The Cardinals tied it. Once they got the tying run in, that's when Mike Matheny made a change. He had Zevchinski up. He had Descalso ready to pinch hit. But when they tied it, he changed his mind, pulled Descalso back, and sent Westbrook up to bat for himself. And Westbrook tried to surprise the Phillies with a 2-out bunt, trying to bunt his way aboard, get a run home. It didn't work, and we are tied at 2 going to the bottom of the 6th. Westbrook, just 77 pitches, will face 3, 4, 5. Utley, Howard, Young. Utley tonight has an RBI single, and he's also struck out. Phillies are going to stay home for a series with the Pirates this week. The Cardinals will continue a 3-city road trip, go to Washington, take on the Nationals. You know, it's funny, all night long we saw Kendrick blowing into his hand and trying to deal with the cold. Westbrook doesn't look like it's bugging him much at all.
You have to remember where he started his career.
A lot of time in Cleveland.
A little chilly in there in April and May.
That was a Yankee briefly, and then an Indian for a long time as Jay races back over his head and up over the fence for a ground rule double.
Wow. Chase is
he's not locked in tonight, huh?
But he's locked in at the plate.
Yeah, locked in at the plate, just not on the bases.
When he leaves the box, something happens.
Now maybe he's wishful thinking. He was hoping that was a home run so he didn't have to run the bases again. Now, he hits that ball good, and normally when you hit it good here, the ball goes out, but this one looked like the wind got it and hooked it a little bit, and he saw it bouncing up in the bushes and thought, okay, that's where it landed.
Okay, Westbrook.
Well, yeah, John Jay took a very interesting little route for that ball, running around in circles out there. And Westbrook was just trying to direct him, but I'm sure John Jay with his back turned didn't see him.
The leadoff double for Utley. Here's Howard. Pulls the ground ball. That'll get the runner over. Out number 1.
Now, normally you would say, okay, that's a really good at bat. He got the guy over. Ryan Howard's working on trying to hit the ball the other way. But Charlie Manuel will tell you, he's the run producer. He's the guy who has to drive in the runs. You don't mind him hitting the ball with the strike or two. But your first strike, the last thing you want to do is hit a little roll over ground ball with the first pitch of the at bat. Try to find something to drive, and now the infield's in, and this is where Michael Young is pretty good at shooting it through there.
Yeah, professional hitter at the plate, 0 for 2 tonight, but very good career numbers against Westbrook, and looking to extend a hitting streak to 12.
You see late in the game, Michael Young almost going right to his 2-strike approach. You'll watch him get his front foot down very early, even before Westbrook releases the ball. That's his normal 2-strike approach, where he's just trying to make solid contact, put the ball in play.
He's so good at shooting the ball the other way in these situations to try to get an RBI.
Didn't go on the appeal. Ball 2. A lifelong Texas Ranger, at least at the major league level. Originally started in the Blue Jay organization, but made his major league debut and spent his entire career with the Rangers until coming to Philadelphia this year. Had an off year last year, hit .277. Pretty good off year.
This is where Westbrook is really this is a semi-intentional walk. He's trying to set up the double play. If Mike Young wants to get himself out, but now with the 3-0 count, I wouldn't be surprised if they just put him on, or this is going to be a sinker away, about 6-8 inches off the plate. It was a semi-intentional walk, set the double play up. I'm a good ground ball guy. Let's get to the next guy and see if we can get out of this inning.
And this is where, in a week or two, the Phillies lineup is going to be a lot different, because this would probably be Carlos Ruiz or maybe Delmon Young once he gets back, but they don't have quite the depth in their lineup right now that they figure to have pretty soon.
I think, too, the pitch around is one thing, but the trust that you have with your catcher, Yadier Molina, to be able to pitch around a guy, bounce a sinker, hopefully Michael Young would chase it. Yeah, there's just nothing's going to get by him.
Big spot here for young Dominic Brown. Utley began the inning with a double, took third on a ground out by Ryan Howard. Michael Young drawing the walk. On the corner, 1-1.
Or did you find in this situation as a sinker ball pitcher when you needed a double play, especially against a young hitter who at times can be a little over aggressive and come out of the zone, that you're going to try to work him away and hope he pulls off on one and hits it either back to you or to second base?
Yeah, you want to make sure now you got a strike on him too. He doesn't want to get the 2 strikes as a young hitter because you don't want to bring the strikeout into play. So this is the real pitch right here you can get him with.
Freeze racing over, no play.
With a young hitter, they actually go into the protection mode before they get the 2 strikes because they're scared of the 2-strike count. So you have a feeling as a veteran pitcher that you can get the bat to move if you can get it to look like a strike and end up a ball. And they decided right there to go little cutter up and in to jam him. But now you're right, Crucky. They could walk him off the plate away here, and he might just chase one. The thing that you're scared about, that the batter doesn't hit it hard enough to get the double play.
Yeah, that's the issue. If he does throw it out far enough where he hits it off the end of the bat and it's a slow roll or a carve, and look at what they're doing right now. They're bringing the infield in because they know they're going to go away right here and hope he hits us. If he hits a slow roll, like you said, there's no way to turn to it.
It's one of the more frustrating things. You get a guy in that 1-2, 0-2, 2-2 count. You know you can throw the sinker and get him to top it, but they don't hit it hard enough.
You saw Fernando Salas warming in the bullpen for the Cardinals. Tie game here in the 6th inning, and the Phillies threatening 1st and 3rd, 1 out.
The Phillies are going to go on contact here because if they go for the double play, they got to make them pay with the runner on third breaking. So this is on contact both at 1st and 3rd.
Way outside.
Well, I can guarantee if this ball's hit on the ground, Chase Utley's running just to stay out of the double play and force them to make a decision. Do I throw home if I don't think I can get 2, or do we try to turn 2 and risk the fact of giving up a run if you don't get the double play?
Bases loaded.
Well, you saw the reaction from Jake Westbrook on the mound. He had the guy up there, and he had him set up 1 and 2. Got Ben Revere coming up. Matheny, he's bobbing and weaving. Is he coming out or is he staying?
Salas ready. Matheny will leave Westbrook.
Well, I think right here the infield's got to come home. Revere with his wheels, they're not going to be able to double him up the middle. He'd have to hit a bullet. So I think they're going to still play the infield in and bring the ball home. And he's telling him just to throw the ball over the plate. Give me some strikes. You've had back-to-back walks here to load the bases. I understand the first walk to set the double play up, but the second walk was a mistake. We've got to throw strikes right here.
And this is a play here. If they do hit a ground ball up the middle, and they do come home, Yadier Molina has to be very careful because Chase Utley's getting a great secondary lead, and he's not afraid to take a guy out at either second or at home.
Bases loaded for the Phillies with a 1 out. Chase Utley at 3rd. And And Michael Young and Dominic Brown at second and first. Both of them walked. The Phillies with a great opportunity to take the lead back after the Cardinals just tied it in the top half of the sixth. Ground ball to short. 1 and 2. They turn the double play on Revere on the hard hit ball to the shortstop Cosma. Sunday Night Baseball presented by Taco Bell is brought to you by Nissan, innovation that excites, and Lunesta. Happy birthday to the Philly fanatic, celebrating his 35th birthday here today. A big, and I mean a big, pregame ceremony in honor of the fanatic. That's his mom, Phoebe, who flew in from, I believe, the Galapagos Islands is where in the bio it says that the fanatic was born. You must have had some good fun with the fanatic, or maybe he had some fun at your expense over the years.
He had a lot of material to work with me, but with his ample stomach, but he's been a fixture here for a long, long time, and I might be a little biased when I say this, but I've heard it from people from all over the country. Without question, he is the best mascot / entertainer in baseball.
Left-hander Antonio Bastardo into the game out of the Phillies pen after 6 solid innings from Kyle Kendrick. Bastardo making his 7th appearance of the season. How about the numbers? 6 innings, 1 hit, no runs so far. The velocity is not what it was a couple of years ago. You saw that one at 89. He's about 89 to 91 right now. He used to be a pretty good 94 consistently, but he is still awfully tough on left-handed batters.
He's awfully tough on everybody. He's #1 in the big leagues right now, or the National League, in opponent's batting average at .056. And he's got it locked in this year so far.
He went around, and it's 1-2 on John Jay. Jay now 0 for his last 15.
That has to be early season. The way he and Ben Revere, look at all the movement in his hands, and then he drops them and brings them back up, and you can't have any timing.
Utley throws it wide of first, and Jay is on his way to second base.
Well, Utley knows Jay can run well, and he tries to rush his play. And you see he gets a great grip. He makes the throw, and this is one of those that if you're Ryan Howard, you come off the base. You look where his left foot was on the base. If we can show that, he's on the home plate side of first base. He has to be on the outside part of that. Now I understand that Utley's close. The throw was with fairly good velocity on it from Utley, but that's a play you got to come off the base and keep it there and keep the double play in order, even if you can't get Jay out.
Air charge to Utley. Carpenter is the batter, a home run and a couple of strikeouts. Looking down to third to Jose Akendo. Let's see if he shows bunt or if they keep the bunt on again with the go-ahead run at second. Nobody out. Gets it down toward first. Only play for Howard, on to Utley covering. The sacrifice moves Jay to third.
Well, exactly what you talked about earlier, Crucky, that in the bunt situation, the Cardinals are bunting it over to Ryan Howard. They're not going to bunt it firm to third and take the third baseman out of the play. They're just going to know that they can just get the bunt down either third or first, and that they're going to get the runner over.
Yeah, and that's usually, like we talked about earlier, you bunt it hard to third, make Michael Young commit to the ball, and that way, the third base is unoccupied. You don't have to worry about it. But a lot of teams now are pushing it to Ryan Howard to see if he has the nerve to make the throw, and he. Right there, I mean, he didn't have a play. It was a great bunt by Carpenter.
Chad Durbin is up again.
Now, Beltran swung at the first two pitches his last time up and basically got himself out. See if he's more selective here, batting right hand against Bastardo.
Infield in for the Phillies.
He hit a homer last night that way off of Cliff Lee.
Lines it foul. Nice grab.
City of brotherly love.
Beltran had a base hit in the first. He's also grounded out and popped up. At the knees, and it's 0-2.
Well, he's got 2 pitches at least, if not 3, to try and strike him out. I wouldn't be surprised if all 3, the next 3 pitches, are out of the strike zone, trying to get Beltran to chase. Breaking ball in, he pulled it hard foul. He goes fastball and dots the outside corner to get an 0-2. Now he speeds him up again with a fastball away. John, I got to believe sooner or later he's going to go for a down and in breaking ball to try and punch him out.
Down and in fastball, 2-2.
Tell you though, the way the Cardinals approach hitting with runners in scoring position, even with 2 strikes, that's why they hit for such a high average. They try to hit everything the other way. If he throws a breaking ball and it's not down, that sets his bat for a bullet down the left field line.
Again down and in with the fastball.
Well, he went for 3 balls, but Carlos stayed within himself and making him get the ball up. This is where you might throw a breaking ball. If you don't get the strikeout, you set up the double play with a walk. He hasn't seen that breaking ball at all. Going fastball away.
Located it pretty well, but Beltran got a piece.
Yeah, that was an outstanding pitch. If he can throw a breaking ball out of that same window and then bounce it and get him to commit, because he's kind of in swing mode. He swung at a ball that was right on the corner, a fastball. If you can throw your breaking ball to that same window, you can get him, I think, with strikeout right here.
He does throw the breaking ball, but he misses for ball 4.
It was just a little bit too much of a ball out of his hand, so you couldn't get him to commit.
And Charlie Manuel's got the righty up. Got a couple of right-handed batters coming up for the Cardinals, and here comes the skipper. He's taking the ball from Bastardo. Durbin is on his way in with the Cardinals threatening in the 7th. Years. Watch every out-of-market regular season game live on your favorite supported mobile and connected devices with MLB.TV Premium. Visit MLB.TV for details. The family of baseball sends heartfelt sympathies to everyone affected by this week's tragic event. Support onefundboston.org as they help those affected by the recent tragedy in Boston. A 2-2 tie, 7th inning here in Philadelphia. The Cardinals have runners at first and third, only one out. And Charlie Manuel has gone to his bullpen for veteran right-hander Chad Durbin. Durbin, who was a Philly back in 08, 09, 2010 as well, spent a year in Cleveland, a year in Atlanta. Now he is back with the Phillies and off to kind of a rough start so far. Oral, he's had 7 runners on base, 7 inherited runners. When he's come into games this year, they have all scored. So his ERA is not good, but he's actually done more damage to the starting pitcher's ERA than his own even. And his job right here is don't let these guys score.
Yeah, he's not a big strikeout guy. He's not a big ground out guy, but he does have one at bat against Alan Craig. And if Charlie Manuel's playing matchup, that one at bat, he's 0 for 1 with a strikeout. He's looking to repeat that performance.
Jay at third, Beltran at first, Alan Craig 1 for 3 tonight. Hit 400 last year with the runners in scoring position.
Is that all?
We mentioned the crazy numbers the Cardinals have so far this year with the runners in scoring position. They actually have not done much of a job tonight in those situations. They are 1 for 8 tonight as a team with the runners in scoring position. Swing and a miss by Craig.
Chad Durbin's out, pitches that slider, and you see right there he starts him off with that fastball, and Alan Craig tried to jump him early in this at bat. Now he battles, spread out a little bit and see what you got with his slider. That fastball in again.
On deck, Yadier Molina.
Looks rather nervous.
Some guys just look like they were born to play the game, huh? Into left field, a base hit, and the Cardinals have the lead.
The Phillies loaded the bases last inning. Revere hits into the double play. Cardinals get first and third this inning, and they get a base hit. That's the difference in the game. He went with another fastball. Craig just put a good solid swing on it, hit it hard, and snuck it by Jimmy Rollins.
Yeah, and that wasn't a pull swing. That was a swing to try to hit something up the middle, and he just happened to get a little bit out in front of it, but still hit enough of it hard enough to get it past Jimmy Rollins.
So 3-2 Cardinals now. 2 on, 1 out. Here's Molina, 1 for 3. Curveball inside. Remember that play back at the beginning of the inning? The ground ball off the bat of Jay, charged by Utley, off balance throw. Off the edge of Howard's glove, went for a 2-base error charge to Utley. And has really set up this inning.
The Phillies could have done a couple things a little better there. Chase could have made a better throw, and Ryan Howard maybe stretch a little later, give his second baseman a break by being able to go to the outside part of first base and extend himself a little further. Give him a chance to catch that ball or be able to come off the base, like you said, John, and save the run just to keep the guy at first.
Yeah, not to make an excuse, but you wonder if his groin is. He missed the last couple games with a groin injury, and he said it's still a little tight. You wonder if that was the reason why he couldn't stretch as much as he could. But to me, it's all footwork. You have to get your foot on the right part of the base when a guy's throwing you the ball, so you can get the optimum stretch that you can.
Full count on Molina, who is headed down to first.
Wow. It's a tough 3-1 pitch right there.
Little slider on the outer edge.
Outer edge of what?
The plate.
The left-handed batter's box.
Runners going. And it's ball 4 inside, bases loaded.
Here's the play we keep talking about. The play by Utley. He's coming in on the ball. His footwork's perfect, but you see Howard where his foot is. That's where you have to move your foot. Look at his left foot. He's stretching with the right foot, but he's stretching directly towards Chase Utley and not towards where the ball is coming. And, could it be the Achilles? Could it be the groin? Whatever it was, the footwork wasn't there, and that's why John Jay got the second base and eventually scored the go-ahead run.
And here's Matt Adams with a chance to break it open. 2 for 2 with a walk tonight. He's raised his average to .565, 13 for 23. Just now, a left-hander starts throwing in the pen for the Phillies.
That's a pretty good approach, John. He's letting that ball get deep.
There's Jeremy Horst up in the pen.
He doesn't have much of an opportunity. It seems like he's going to hit a rollover grounder to Utley or Howard.
Tracking it and letting it get real deep.
With 1 out and Howard's playing behind the runner, is he going to try to turn 2 here?
One and 2 on Adams. So Horst evidently getting up for Jay and Carpenter should he get back around to the top of the Cardinal lineup. Up high. Crucky, it's a restless group right now. You can feel the unhappiness with the Philly fans have.
Yeah,
right
and
now.
I believe me, I played on bad teams. I'm not saying that this is a bad team, but in these situations, Dan, they're expecting the worst. I mean, I played on some
you played on some good teams. You played in the World Series.
One good. Yeah, we lost to you guys. But I played on one good one, and the rest, we weren't very good. We scored a lot of runs. We could hit, but we couldn't pitch. And when you looked around our field, we weren't throwing out a lot of Gold Gloves every year.
Strike 3 called.
Little change up, 83 miles an hour, hit right at the hollow of the knee.
Well, most of the time I'll side with the hitter, Oral, but that's too close a pitch for a young kid to take with 2 strikes. Or a veteran player. It doesn't matter who.
Tony La Russa used to have a phrase as David Freese steps in called selectively aggressive, and I think one of you guys was talking about a little bit before. There's a time to be patient, but there's a time, especially with the men on base, to dial it up a notch and try to do some damage. And Matt Adams took a borderline pitch there in an RBI situation, so it's up to Freese. Well, he was due to make it out eventually, I suppose.
The odds were against him. You know what's sad though? He's hitting .520 now or whatever, and he's probably thinking, God, I wonder if I'll play. I wonder if I'll play tomorrow.
Now to play off to the right, 1-2.
That's the way the young mind works in your first go round in the big leagues. You have success, but you always think that 1 out. I failed with the bases loaded. I struck out looking with the bases loaded. Will he ever trust me to put me back in the lineup again? I know it's going through his mind. Great play right there.
Eric Kratz, 32 years of age, 12 years, almost all of it in the minors. Just a little time here and there with the Pirates and the Phillies, getting the bulk of the duty behind the plate until Carlos Ruiz comes back from his suspension, which is 1 week from today.
David Freese has no inkling of pulling the ball. You see how deep that one got? Almost hit him in the chest, and he fouled it off to over the Phillies dugout.
A run in. Cardinals lead 3-2. Bases loaded, 2 down.
They might have learned something from last night with Cliff Lee. Every RBI single they had was either up the middle or the other way, because they're crowding David Freese right now. They're not giving him a chance to hit the ball the other way.
Slider away.
Line to first, inning over. But a run in for the Cardinals. They lead 3-2, 7th inning stretch. Jimmy Rollins due up third. Baseball on ESPN. Time to take a look at our game track, brought to you by Jeep. The Cardinals tied it in the 6th, and they now have the lead. 3-2 going to the bottom of the 7th inning, trying to make it 3 out of 4 over the offensively challenged Philadelphia Phillies, who have scored 2 runs or fewer in 9 of their first 18 games so far this season. Meanwhile, the other game going on tonight, the completion of that day-night doubleheader in Boston. Lorenzo Cain draws the bases-loaded walk. The Royals take the lead in the top of the 10th inning. And then Greg Holland in the bottom of the 10th. Bulldog, check out the movement on this pitch. Whoa! Little video game pitch there by Holland to pick up the save. The Royals sweep the doubleheader, and they are in first place in the American League Central at 10-7. The city of brotherly love showing its love and support for Boston. Jake Westbrook is back on the mound. Remember, looking for a career win number 100 tonight. He's got a lead, pitching into the bottom of the 7th. Bottom of the order, near the bottom of the order, number 8 hitter Eric Kratz will lead it off. Pitcher spot due up next. Fernando Salas warming again in the pen.
96th pitch by Westbrook, 52 strikes, been pretty efficient, had some ground balls when he's needed it, battled through some cold weathers, had a good grip on the ball all night, making it sink. Mixed in some good cutters to lefties to get him off that sinker away, but he's had very good movement on that sinker tonight.
How do you get a good grip when it's cold like this?
Hey, you just get a little moisture on your hand, maybe a little rosin, make it a little stickier than normal.
Cheesesteaks are back.
You hitters, you get to use pine tar and the Manny Moda stick and all that other stuff.
Listen, if you two can't play nice.
Hey, I'll agree with him there. I think pitchers on cold nights like this, they should be allowed to use pine tar.
Or hitters don't want the ball to slip and get at their coconut.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, I just think you should. I think cold nights pitchers should have the same advantage as a hitter, being able to hold on to a bat. Why not be able to hold on to the ball?
Well, they always say you're not allowed to use a foreign substance, but if it was like American-made pine tar, that's not foreign.
Horrible.
Well, just saying.
Pitch number 100 coming up for Westbrook. Base hit. Tying run aboard to begin the bottom of the 7th, and Lance Nix will come up to bat in the pitcher spot.
An interesting decision by Charlie Manuel to bring in Lance Nix, and here comes Matheny out to get Westbrook. We'll continue this Lance Nix move now.
Westbrook still with a chance to win it. He will leave here in the 7th inning. Salas on his way in. The tying run aboard for the Phillies in the bottom of the 7th. Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN. Philly fanatic. It's his birthday, hoping for a win. week, beginning with the Yankees and the Rays tomorrow night, 7 Eastern on ESPN, presented by USAA. Monday Night Baseball. Then Wednesday Night Baseball, the Dodgers are at Citi Field to take on the Mets. Both games also live on Watch ESPN. All right, the wheels are turning into both dugouts right now. It's a 3-2 game, Cardinals leading. Fernando Salas is on the mound now for St. Louis. Right-hander in. Lance Nix, who had been announced as the pinch hitter, will stay. Might be a bunting situation, but Nix is not a bunter. He's a
no, and this is where Charlie, you know, he wants the 2-run homer right here. He doesn't want to tie it. He wants to take a lead, and you know, you got a guy in first in Kratz who doesn't run great. This has all the makings of a split finger double play, or a roll over in the hole first and third.
How do you look at this, Orel, in terms of who should be hitting and what the Phillies should be doing here?
Well, if you're going to bunt him over, then you probably pinch run. So that tells me that Nix is swinging away. Because the front end of the double play doesn't matter for foot speed. It matters if you're trying to bunt him over. So if they get to first and second, they might pinch run.
And I think there's a lot of reasons that Charlie gets hamstrung in these situations, because he eventually, if they take a lead, he's going to have to move Mayberry into first base, which he has done. You know, now he needs an outfielder, and if you bunt, you know, Carrera, they're another outfielder. Then now they don't have a right fielder. They can put Freddie Galvis out there, but you know, now you're losing, you know, 3 bench players for 1 position.
Late on the fastball, 1-2.
That's the bunt get him over hack right there by Lance Nix. He's trying to go up there in the seats to the fans and give themselves a go-ahead lead.
Left-hander Randy Choate up in the pen.
He closed out the game the other night, and he threw some unbelievably good split fingers. Salas did to strike out Jimmy Rollins with the runner on third and get a ground out by Freddie Galvis to end the game. Probably looking for that strikeout right here with it, isn't he, Orel?
Yep. Got him out front, just not quite down enough. Make a mistake with that pitch, though. That's the one that Lance Nix will hit in the right field bleachers. That was almost that type of pitch. Lance likes that ball down. He gets beat on the ball up, gets tied up a lot. Philly fanatic looking for a birthday present.
Again, the 2-2. Lays off, full count.
This is where I've seen other managers now at 3-2 count. If you're going to start the runner first, this is when they bring your pinch runner in too. But I got to believe he's not running it first, and Lance Nix is going to try and get a strike and put a good swing on it. The last thing Charles is going to do is run into a double play, strike him out, throw him out. You're going to let the bat do the talking here.
The last thing you want too is for Nix to hit a grounder to second base with the runner not running. You hit into a double play.
Tough job, cold night. Last time you swung a bat, BP, was about, I don't know, 5 hours ago. Now you're up here in a 1-run game.
And he just had a big hack on a fastball down the middle. Let's see if Molina gets creative with something off speed. Talk about him being the general back there. Yep, they're going to go off speed, I think. That's where you trust your catcher, because as a pitcher in a 3-2, you got a 1-run lead, and it's like when he flashes that off-speed pitch right away, it gives you confidence on the mound to go to it. If you got a shake to that pitch, you feel like you're out there on the hill all alone. When the catcher, the general, puts it right down there and flashes to it, the creative pitch, you feel like we're all on the same page.
I don't think he can go back to it, because he got those last 2 split fingers up in the zone.
Fastball fouled back.
Well, if he ain't loose now, he wasn't loose before he come up. He is now. My back's starting to cramp up watching those swings.
Well, Molina knows with all these 3-2 pitches, they're not running at first. I've got a big guy swinging full bore at the plate. If I can get something off speed down, we're going to get that ground ball double play.
I think they got to go fastball in. I don't think they can trust the off speed. He's going to it again.
Here it comes. He wants it down. He's telling him to make the adjustment with that glove.
That lifted way up, and it's hit all the way to the wall in left center. Kratz around third, getting the wave. Tie game.
Charlie got his wish. He put Lance Nix up there. He saved his bullet. He didn't hit him for Ben Revere in a bases loaded situation. Here comes the changeup. Salas has had trouble getting it down the hole at bat, as John Crucky has been saying here. And he made one more mistake, and Nix made him pay. It's been fastball, changeup, but all the changeups have been up. Fastballs have been strikes. It was the right pitch call, just the wrong execution.
Now Rollins. Shows bunt, takes a strike.
Yeah, I thought it was a little dicey to throw that changeup. He hasn't been able to get one below the belt, it seems like, in the at-bat to Nix, and you're just asking for trouble. You know, Jimmy Rollins squaring the bunt. He's a dead pull hitter, and Alan Craig's creeping in at first base. This is when he can shoot one past him.
Strike two.
If he swings.
You saw Jake Westbrook looking on for the dugout. There will be no win for Westbrook tonight. Left with a lead. The tying run is scored. Out of play.
You saw in that swing right there by Jimmy Rollins. You saw him throw that top hand, roll it over. He just got underneath that. I mean, he's doing anything he can to hit that ball to the right side. Getting ahead in the count now favors the Cardinals because they can move the first baseman back and give him some room. But you see that top hand, see how it's rolled over the barrel of the bat. He's trying to get something on the ground to that right side.
Took something off, and a swing and a miss by Rollins for out number one.
There's the changeup he wanted to throw to Lance Nix. He made a mistake up. He's been out there on the mound now, made his adjustment finally. Got Rollins swinging at the high fastball. Jimmy trying to pull it. Here's the changeup he was looking to throw a few pitches earlier, but executes that one to keep the runner at second base. And Nix gets Rollins out in front, gets that ball diving low and away.
Now Mayberry, a walk, a base hit, and a strikeout. Cardinals took the lead with a run in the top half. The Phillies have come back to tie it here in the bottom half.
But Charlie told us before the game that Mayberry likes the ball down, and saw that first pitch was up, but he did get a hit off of Westbrook his first at bat on a ball down.
Just low.
See Yadier there shaking his head a little bit like, you know, didn't you call me out on that pitch?
See him checking the feet of Mayberry to look like there as Mayberry digs into the box. Different set of signs with a runner out at second. How much easier is it for a pitcher, Oral, when you have complete trust in your catcher back there that he's completely in charge of the game?
Well, the one thing that you can do is you completely think about yourself and your mechanics and just executing pitches. You get kind of robotic out there, and if you get locked in and get on a roll, you can chalk up most of that roll to your catcher.
Grounded to short. 2 down as the runner takes third. Chase Utley, but he will not face Salas. Mike Matheny wants the left-hander Randy Choate, the specialist, in to face Utley in a tie game here in Philly. Night Baseball is presented by Taco Bell. Sometimes you gotta live Mas. And in part by Ford Service. For big rebates on brakes and tires, see your Ford dealer. Truckee got more cheesesteaks sent up here.
Tony Luke's out in Ashburn Alley. Pat's and Geno's and Tony Luke's.
You get yours with whiz or provolone. What do you get it with?
Non-foreign substance, American.
Randy Choate is into the game. Talk about a left-handed specialist. Last year with the Marlins and the Dodgers, he made 80 appearances. 80. And totaled 38 2/3 innings. He faces lefties. That's about it. And he's got Utley and potentially Howard, depending on how this goes. The go-ahead run at third, 2 down in the bottom of the 7th, and a swing and a foul off by Utley.
Well, this is what makes it tough for Chase Utley, because he is a better hitter against lefties than Ryan Howard, who's hitting behind him. And now Choate they get ahead in the count. Now they can nibble, and hopefully Chase gets himself out. And if they walk him, you know what? So be it. They walk him. Go after Howard, who's been struggling against lefties all year. Or so far this year. It's still early.
Utley 1 for 7 in his career against Choate. And 2 for 3 in this game with a single and a double.
You see there how far Yadier Molina set up off the plate, you know, telling Choate, this is where I want it. I don't want this thing anywhere close to the plate. And if he chases it, he chases it.
Right-hander Mitchell Boggs now up in the Cardinal pen. The roles, some of them at least, somewhat unassigned right now. Cardinals without a true closer at the moment. Swing and a miss by Utley. Look at the sweep on that pitch.
And that's exactly what I'm talking about, Dan, is he doesn't have to throw Chase Utley a strike. Even in now, if he walks him now, getting ahead 1-2, it doesn't matter. But you see the pitch right here. It starts on the outer half of the plate and breaks about a foot and a half outside, and Chase Utley, being overly aggressive, goes out and chases.
Did not put that pitch where he wanted to. Left that one over the inner half.
This is where that cold weather comes into play, because you make that one good solid breaking ball, and if you really go to throw a better one, sometimes you can just slip out because it's so cold and you're having trouble getting a grip of the ball.
Well, sometimes too you get a 1-2 count, you get your head in the count, you get overconfident, think, wow, I can get this guy now. And he has had success against Chase Utley, but he makes another mistake this game. Yeah, Chase Utley might drive in this run.
Left field. Inning over. Lance Nix with a big pinch hit, though. The Phillies have tied it 3-3 at the end of 7. Birthday to the Philly fanatic, celebrating his 35th birthday today. Hoping for a win. Phillies just got him a run, tied it at 3 in the bottom of the 7th, and on to the 8th we go. Here in Philadelphia, final game of a 4-game series. Cardinals have taken 2 of the first 3. The cold weather not bugging the fanatic one bit.
Not in that thing.
Let's see how Mike Adams deals with it. On for the 9th time already this season. A guy who had surgery for thoracic outlet syndrome, a nerve problem similar to what has sidelined and maybe ended the career of Cardinals pitcher Chris Carpenter. First pitch swinging. Pete Cosmo with a pop-up. And Howard takes in foul territory, 1 down. Adams signed a 2-year deal by the Phillies. When healthy, he has been, guys, one of the better 8th-inning pitchers in all of baseball.
Well, the 8th inning last year for the Phillies was like a black hole. This is Ruben Morrow had to go out and figure out what to do in the 8th, and Adams was his man, and he is hoping to have a happy and healthy year in the Phillies uniform. Kind of check off one of the boxes of their question marks for this year.
Pinch hitter now for the Cardinals, Shane Robinson, batting in the pitcher's spot. He's hardly played this year, has made only 1 start. And that was last night with Cliff Lee on the mound. Shows bunt, takes a strike. See Robinson kind of sneaking a peek at first to see if Howard is creeping in again, as he started to after Robinson showed bunt. 1 ball, 1 strike.
See Michael Young guarding the line, that playing that no doubles defense as far as the infielders go.
Misses badly all the way to the backstop.
2 in a row he spiked, Worrell.
Yeah, it could be a little bit of the cold weather trying to get a grip. Sometimes the ball start to feel a little slippery. You start grabbing it too hard. It's that super slow-mo. It's just a 4-seam fastball. He's trying to drive to the outside corner. He's just spiking it over there, pulling it, grabbing it.
He's having a tough time.
Rub it up, get some moisture on your hand a little bit, try and find a little tackiness on that ball so you can just use your natural grip pressure. Once it gets to you, you start feeling it back there. Sometimes it gets a little psycho.
Full count. Kyle Kendrick, Jake Westbrook were the starters tonight. Both with good outings. Neither will be involved in the decision. It's in the hands of the bullpens right now, and a 3-3 tie in the 8th inning. Boggs up again to work the next half inning out of the Cardinal pen. Robinson batting in the pitcher's spot. Swing and a miss. 2 down. Sports Center comes your way after the ball game tonight here on ESPN. Among the stories that you will see covered, the recap of a busy day in the NBA playoffs, including a Miami win over Milwaukee. Also the big news out of the NFL, Darrelle Revis traded to the Bucks today, and NFL draft coverage. Where will Matt Barkley go? All that in a busy day in baseball, including a doubleheader up in Boston today, where the Kansas City Royals won both of them. Colorado, the Rockies had their 8-game winning streak snapped. Arizona with a comeback, a come from behind 5-4 win over the Rockies today. Hey, the Milwaukee Brewers have won 7 in a row. They've gone from 2-8 to 9-8. Ryan Braun with a 3-run homer. The Dodgers got a much needed win today, beat Baltimore 7-4. Matt Kemp had 3 hits.
Two big spending West Coast teams, the Angels and the Dodgers, kind of struggled out of the gate.
Angels beat the Tigers again today. John Jay, ground ball up the middle to his left. Rollins on to first in time. 3 up and 3 down to go the Cardinals. Tie game going to the bottom 8. Ryan Howard to lead it off for the Phils. both fashion and function tonight when you get one of those Fanatic hats. Look good, keep you warm on this cold night. As we go to the bottom of the 8th, Cardinals and Phillies tied at 3 here at Citizens Bank Park. And on the mound now for the St. Louis Cardinals, right-hander Mitchell Boggs. Boggs had a chance as the closer. Remember, Jason Mott is out with an elbow injury, maybe out for the season. Boggs had a chance as the closer, blew a couple of saves. Now has moved out of that role. Although Mike Matheny says it's a fluid situation right now in the Cardinal pen. Getting all fired up. Rocky theme music, Crucky. Bring back good memories.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is... I know the one year we played when the vet was rocking, anytime this late in the game in a tie game, it was crazy.
Swing and a miss by Ryan Howard. 1 for 2 with a sac fly tonight. Howard will be followed by Michael Young and Dominic Brown. At the knees, 0-2.
Hey, watch Ryan Howard's front hip and then his back shoulder. See how his front hip flies out and raises up, and the back shoulder dips? That's a guy who's trying to uppercut everything, hit it out of the ballpark. But that's also a guy who is now having trouble driving the ball the other way that used to be his strength, because he's already committed to the pull. So if he tries to hit it the other way, it's not going to go anywhere unless he keeps that hip in and that shoulder up.
The year he hit 58 home runs and won the National League MVP, it seemed like almost all of them went to left center field.
And he keeps telling me, he told me in spring training, he told me again today during batting practice, he's trying to get that way to where he can hit it the other way. He said, I can't do it. He said, I've watched tape, I've tried everything, I can't do it. Right now, he said, I can't do it. He said, but it'll come. Well, here's Ryan Howard in batting practice today, and you can see he hits with the weighted bat, and this is, nice easy swings, just shooting the ball the other way. But you watch the back shoulder, there's no dip in it, the front hip doesn't fly out, and he can hit the ball. He has the ability, the great ability to hit the ball the other way. He's hit over 300 before.
Last year hit just 219 in 71 games as Michael Young waits on deck.
He was going over his numbers of the 40 homers, 50 homers, 30 homers, whatever, for his first 4 years, and then someone said, hey, they're going to make an adjustment and you better start looking to pull the ball more. And he said he got into bad habits the last few years. He hasn't been able to get out of them. I know exactly what he means. It happens to people. But that's, when a guy's throwing 60 miles an hour, you can hit it wherever you want. When a guy's throwing 95, a little bit different animal.
3-2. Out to Cosma, 1 down. So Howard to retire. That'll bring Michael Young to the plate, 0 for 2 with a walk. Looking to extend that hitting streak. The streak he's on right now, it's the 29th time in his career that he's had at least a 10-game hitting streak.
Consistent.
2,200 hits.
Got another streak that might Beltran with three games with home runs, 3 straight games with homers.
Well, we watched Ryan Howard take a few swings in batting practice. You watch Michael Young take batting practice. Talk about a professional. His first 6 swings, he was line drive over second, line drive over second, line drive over second, line drive over second. The last swing, he hit the pitching cage, coming right back at the batting practice pitcher. He gets locked in right from swing 1.
But the thing is, Michael Young consistently can take that swing into a game. Yeah, he'll have times when he pulls off and he'll roll over balls. Everyone does. Ryan Howard right now hasn't had the ability to do that, where he can take his BP swing into a game.
So Jonathan Papelbon, the Phillies closer, up in the pen. 2-1 to Young. Off the glove, slows it down. Safe at first is Young.
Little pressure on the official scorer right now. Hit or a hit streak or an error.
Hey man, this is Philly.
What do you mean by that?
I'd be shocked if he gave it an error. Although, you know, if Boggs leaves that ball go, you know, it's right to Carpenter, and they got an easy play.
It is a hit, and now a 12-game hitting streak for Michael Young.
Why don't you pitchers stay out of the way? Let the regular guys play the game.
Tied at 3, runner at first, 1 out, Dominic Brown.
Michael Young, really not at this age a base stealer, but he will try and sneak a base in on you over there, and that's a good pickoff move by Boggs, just to let him know he's thinking about him.
You sneak stolen bases against Molina?
Yeah, you get it off the pitcher, like you did with earlier in the game with, was it Mayberry that went early?
Yep.
Boggs does have a high leg kick. I don't know if he's going to steal here with Dominic Brown hitting, because it makes it too easy to, you know, give an intentional pass to a. Not that you might, but you know he's struggling offensively too. But Ben Revere's really struggling, and their #1 pinch hitter's been used in Lance Nix.
Line toward left center, base hit. Young makes the turn, sprinting toward third base.
This is a nice read by Michael Young. Not only to go at the crack of the bat, but then to read the depth of John Jay, who was playing no doubles in center field. And when this ball falls short, he just keeps on going. He never breaks stride, and he's taking a read. He didn't need a third base coach, Ryan Sandberg, on that at all. He read that all the way himself, trying to get the third, get into scoring position.
Yeah, the best base runners in baseball are the ones that use their coaches the least amount.
Go ahead run at third, 1 out of the bottom of the 8th.
And it's interesting here in the bottom of the 8th. Now the infield is in. The last time they had this same situation, they had the infield back, and Ben Revere hit into the double play. You know, the squeeze plays in effect, but 0-1 right now, a little bit difficult. I can't imagine how easy it would be to bunt off Mitchell Boggs throwing about 98.
Yeah, big situation for Ben Revere and the Phillies. Working on his swing, got moved down in the order, had a chance to put this game out of reach earlier, but hit into a double play with bases loaded. You got to be able to control your mind as much as your body right here, not live in the past.
Revere 0 for 3 tonight. 3 ground outs, 1 of them into a double play.
That's easier said than done, or because the past is right up there on the scoreboard and it says 203. That's his batting average. I know there's times I'd like for that thing not to be up.
Phil's just 1 for 8 tonight with runners in scoring position. Trying to break the tie in the bottom of the 8th inning. And he's done it. RBI single Revere. The Phillies have the lead.
Well, they wanted the ball in. They got it out over the plate, and that's the thing. If you're going to pitch to how your catcher's calling the game, Molina studies these hitters. He knows exactly the game plan. If you don't execute, I don't care if you're hitting 203 or 303. You make mistakes out over the plate. All he's trying to do is hit the ball up the middle. That pitch was a perfect pitch to hit a line drive right where he hit it.
And Kratz a swing and a belt. 3-run homer. Mitchell Boggs gives up 4 runs in the inning. 3 of them on the home run by Kratz. Mike Matheny's going back to the pen. 7-3 Phillies all of a sudden after the big hit by Revere and then the deep home run by Kratz to blow it open. The Phillies looking for a split of this 4-game series and took a big step closer to that goal with one big swing of the bat by their catcher, Erik Kratz. Has certainly warmed the hearts of Phillies fans here tonight. The base hit by Ben Revere, then the 3-run homer by Erik Kratz to blow it open. 7-3 Phillies. As Mike Matheny has gone to his bullpen again for veteran left-hander Mark Zepchinski, making his 7th appearance of the season. Bullpen has been a struggle for the Cardinals. The starting pitching's been awfully good, and the bullpen not so much so far this year. And Boggs with another rough outing, charged with 4 runs in a third of an inning. Zepchinski will face Kevin Franzen, who's batting in the pitcher's spot. 4-run inning for the Phillies. Kratz with a 3-run homer. The big hit by Ben Revere, though, the single that broke the tie. Think of how different things could be had Boggs, as you guys talked about, not reached out, touched the ball off the bat of Michael Young. Might have been an out. He couldn't come up with it. He slowed it down, turned into an infield hit for Young instead of 2 outs, nobody on, 1 out, 1 on. Dominic Brown comes up with a base hit, and then on it goes from there.
As bad as this year has been so far for Mitchell Boggs, not only having nightmares about his pitches in their location, but just the deflection off the glove, maybe that could have been the thing that kick-started his year, but so far it has not been good for him at all.
Trouble. Safe.
I tell you what, Mitchell Boggs, you know, it's kind of been a nightmarish year. He started out as a closer, went 2 for 4 in save opportunities. This pitch right here is a pretty good pitch, but he could have made an out of it. He deflected. That's not a bad pitch, but it's up a little bit. He gives up a hit. Now right here, trying to go fastball into Revere, leaves it out over the plate, and then this one attacks. I know that ball's a ball, but it's up, and it had kind of a pattern to it, and it's to a hitter that's aggressive and likes the ball in and loves dead red. And so not a real good night. He's looking forward to better days out of that bullpen for himself.
Back to the top of the Phillies order for Jimmy Rollins, 2 for 4. Down the right field line, foul.
You know, the other thing that set that inning up, not the home run, but Michael Young's good base running on the blooper out there by Dominic Brown out the center field to John Jay. With Michael Young getting around to third base, making a good read on that ball, it really kind of set that inning.
Sports Center coming up next here on ESPN, immediately following the conclusion of the ball game. Rollins 3 for 5. We mentioned it's been a much different story for the Cardinals in the bullpen as opposed to the rotation. Mike Matheny and Derek Lilliquist have seen their starters pitch to the best combined ERA in the National League. But their relievers as a group, their numbers are down near the bottom.
I mean, can one guy cause this chain effect with
the Mott injury?
With Mott injury, yeah. Now someone has to assume the closer role. Mitchell Boggs couldn't do it. Who else can do it? Mahika, can he do it? Yep. Can Salas do it? Now everyone's role is, I guess it's like a hitter, you know. It gets set at one spot in the lineup where I like to hit, and all of a sudden now you have to hit somewhere else. And I don't know. I mean, you still have to get the guys out, right?
Trevor
You're not
Rosenthal,
facing different hitters.
Trevor Rosenthal, a guy they're looking at too, a guy throws 98,
yep.
99 miles an hour, and maybe at some point he assumes the closer's role.
Well, right now the bullpen it's really not by committee, it's situation. Whoever Mike Matheny thinks can get the job done. He likes the matchup. Mike was a catcher, of course, and a really good one, and knew how to manage a pitcher when he was behind the plate. Now he's having to manage a bullpen that doesn't have a closer. I'll tell you what, though, when you're around Mike Matheny, you're around a pretty impressive man. I mean, he is a straight shooter. He's a straight talker. He's well educated on the game and his players. And for somebody who's in his second year of managing, what he managed around last year, he's doing an outstanding job.
Remember the story, advised by his college coach at Michigan to learn Spanish, and took it up and became fluent enough in Spanish he can still speak to the Spanish-speaking players. Got a son who's a good prospect too, right? Tate is his son's name. He's at Missouri State, a freshman, an outfielder, hitting .370 this season. Said he got mom's speed.
Yeah, because he's playing center field.
2-2 to Mayberry. Swing and a miss, 2 down.
I remember he was up a couple years ago up in Bristol at ESPN for the WebJet show, and we were taping some stuff, and all of a sudden his cell phone rang, and he kind of went off camera and came back on and was like, wouldn't tell us nothing. And then he eventually, after he got named the manager, he said that was Mazzella calling, John Mazzella calling him and saying, you know, hey, we want you to be our manager. And he's like, oh boy. Simple, wasn't it, that play? I mean, everyone can do that, right?
Mike Matheny and Robert Ventura both becoming major league managers at the same time, guys without any prior managerial experience.
Yeah, Mike wasn't as shocked as Robin.
Right.
I mean, everybody's shaking their head. Utley's shaking his head on this play. Craig Gibson behind the plate. The home plate umpire's going, how did you catch that ball?
I tell you what, umpires have to love him because they don't get hit by nothing.
He comes out for batting practice. Molina behind the plate with a regular fielder's glove and takes ground balls at short, at third, second. Works on those hands.
Ground ball to second to end the inning. But it is a productive inning for the Phillies, to say the least. 4 runs in the bottom of the 8th and a 7-3 lead as we go to the 9th. Back to South Philly, 7-3 the Phillies over the Cardinals as we go to the 9th inning here on Sunday Night Baseball, presented by Taco Bell. 4 in the bottom of the 8th for the Phillies to break the tie. And Jonathan Papelbon is on. Non-save situation, 4-run lead. As Papelbon tries to secure the win and a series split between the Phillies and the Cardinals. A week from tonight, we will be in Detroit for Sunday Night Baseball. The Tigers hosting the Atlanta Braves. A little early interleague action next Sunday.
2 powerhouse offenses. And a chance to have 2 quality starting pitchers on the mound also with those 2 staffs.
Yep. 2-3-4 for the Cardinals here in the 9th inning. Matt Carpenter, Carlos Beltran, and Alan Craig. Carpenter homered in the first, a couple of strikeouts since then, and a sacrifice. Fastball at the knees. Top 2 teams in the National League East both lost today, Atlanta and Washington. The Mets beating the Nationals. The Phillies trying to move a little bit closer to the teams above them, the 500 mark. Center field, 1 down.
So Crucky in the papers tomorrow, is it going to be, are these the Phillies we're going to see this year, or are we going to see the team that's under 500?
I think this, well, I don't think they're a 500 team. Their pitching, starting pitching dictates they should be better than 500. I think what you're going to see is what you've seen so far this year, pretty much for the entire year, is an inconsistent offense where they'll explode for 8 runs one game, then get shut out, and then score 7 one game, and then get shut out again. They just throw too many not great at bats on you when they need good at bats or decent at bats.
Here's Beltran trying to extend that streak. Has homered in 3 games in a row. 1 for 3 with a walk tonight.
You got to believe that Cole Hamels is going to have a pretty solid year. He's off to a slow start. Cliff Lee's throwing the ball pretty good. Roy Halladay's kind of turned it around. Kyle Kendrick threw the ball pretty well tonight.
Charlie hadn't decided on the 5th starter yet. Which was kind of funny that in his office today when he was trying to figure that one out with us.
Papelbon at the end of the game. You got Adams in the 8th. You got Bastardo as your lefty. You got to thicken the bullpen maybe.
Can they take on more money though to thicken the bullpen?
One of the highest payrolls already, over $150 million.
I think the general consensus is that they know they're going to pitch. Their bullpen is good enough to get by, but anyone you talk to on this team and in this organization, if Ryan Howard doesn't produce power and produce runs,
who's going to drive enough in?
Who's going to drive enough in? And that's why they get shut out a lot.
Beltran shoots it to left. Another hit.
7-3. He needs a home run to extend his streak to 4 games. And he reaches out and slaps one to right on a 2-1 count. Or left, I mean. It's unselfish.
2 for 4 with a walk tonight. Bottom of the 8th inning, Ben Revere with the RBI single that broke the tie, gave the Phillies the lead, and he is tonight's Chevrolet player of the game. Eric Kratz would add a 3-run homer to make it 7-3, and that's where we are right now. 1 on, 1 out of the 9th inning. Alan Craig, the batter. Craig tonight is 2 for 4, including an RBI single his last time up. Breaking ball for a strike, 0-2.
Just changing speeds in the mid-90s, drop it down to 77.
Utley shovels it on to Rollins to force Beltran 2 down.
Well, that one got in there.
That doesn't feel real good on your hands, does it, Crucky? You're going to bust a bat like that. Wow.
It doesn't feel near as bad as hitting one off the end.
No?
Oh, no. Not even close. But, I mean, that's not a good feeling. I'm sure that Alan Craig's feeling right now.
And down to their final out, the Cardinals send Yadier Molina to the plate. 1 for 3 with a walk. Third ball, strike one. 35,000 to the outset. Many have left due to the cold and the length of the game, but those who have braved the cold weather here tonight getting the payoff.
It's interesting. They were playing behind Beltran. If he runs on one of the first pitches they at bat, that might be a base hit for Alan Craig. And now they got first and second and 1 out. I mean, they're giving you the base. Why not take it?
The Phillies salvage a split of the 4-game series with the Cardinals here at Citizens Bank Park. The 4-run at bottom of the 8th, breaking the tie in a 7-3 win. Major League Baseball continues on ESPN tomorrow at 7 Eastern. It'll be the Yankees down in Tampa Bay to take on the Rays. Sports Center is next here on ESPN. This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. For Oral Hershiser, John Crockett, Buster Olney, I'm Dan Schulman saying so long from Philadelphia.